Hi everyone, and welcome to Deep Geek Live. This is a special live stream for at least three reasons. Firstly, this is my last live stream of the year. I won't be doing them on Christmas Eve or New Year's Eve, so I'll be back in the new year. Secondly, I have a few special guests coming up later, people who are friends of the channel, people that I know are incredibly popular when I had them on in the past. And this live stream will be covering a wide range of issues. We don't just have to do a Song of Ice and Fire. I've got a Lord of the Rings expert coming on. I've got a Westworld expert coming on. If you're interested in The Witcher, I've got a Witcher expert coming on. So there's a lot of different stuff we can cover. Those special guests will be appearing throughout the live stream. When I spot them here, I will push them up into the live stream. And thirdly, this is a charity live stream. So what that means is that every single penny we raise here goes to a particular charity, and that charity is rescue.org, or the International Rescue Committee, which is a very cool name. What they do and why I think they deserve supporting today is that they look after the people in this world who need it perhaps the most at that specific moment in time. This has been a really rough year for pretty much everyone, but there are always people who are having it slightly worse off than us, and in some cases a lot worse off than us. The news headlines have been focused in on the things that we know they've rightly been focusing in on, things to do with COVID, the American election, Black Lives Matter, things like that. There's been a lot of stuff going on, but in the wider world, there are still natural disasters. There are still wars going on. There are still people who are affected by them, whose lives are being turned around and upside down by these kinds of things. And what rescue.org do is they just go in and they get non-combatants out from war zones. They pull people out from natural disasters, and they try and set them on the right route to being self-sufficient once more. It's incredibly important work, and I would highly encourage you to donate. I don't take a penny from this, incidentally, if you're interested. YouTube don't either. If you donate, the money all goes to the charity. So I would love you to do that if you possibly could. We've already had a few donations actually before we went on air, and I didn't realize I can't see the ones that happened a while ago, so apologies if you donated a little while before we went on air, then I didn't spot you. But I do want to say, Eric Ferg, thank you so much. I saw yours, and Andrew Long, Kraken Tacos, one of my fantastic moderators. I've got some amazing moderators who've been doing amazing work all year, so thank you so much as well. Tote Sprachen Leben Länger, also with a very generous donation. Röntgen 571, thank you very much. I really appreciate that. Carl Karsnark as well, thank you. Ryan Larkin, Anonymous, thank you. And I think we had one more I just saw that I wanted to say thank you for. Hilda Johansson, thank you as well. Turbo, thank you. Oh, actually, there was a lot more I missed here. Anonymous again, Miscellaneous AB, Tumbleheart. Thank you, guys. This is an amazing start. I'm loving it already. Ariel Winchester, thank you. I really appreciate it. I think that's me caught up on them, but thank you so much for the donations. As I say, I don't get anything from this. I don't, YouTube don't take anything from this. All the money goes straight over. Amber Rowe, thank you so much. Angela Sanchez, thank you. That's very generous of you. Mimi Vitz, again, very generous. Googly Woogly, thank you. I love saying the name, incredibly generous. And Anonymous, again, thank you. Wow, they're rolling in. I'm incredibly really exciting. Austin Cole saying, I'd love to donate. Unfortunately, lost my job. I'm so sorry to hear that. I completely understand. Not everyone can donate. If you can, that's fantastic. If you can't, then every blessing to you. I hope that you that the 2021 brings a better luck and fortune to us all. T Drago 70, thank you. Keith Boynton, thank you. Okay, well, the way that I'm going to run this is that I'll try and give as many shout outs as I can as we're going through. I want to be as interactive as possible as we go through. Joseph SPR, thank you so much. I appreciate it. I always try and frame my live streams around questions from my patrons. That's just one of my ways of giving back to my patrons. Emmy Linda Svensson, thank you. That's very kind of you. So I will be working my way through that, but I'm going to try and pick up as many different questions as we possibly can from the chat as we go through. The first couple of guests I've got on are Song of Ice and Fire guests, so we can probably work through quite a lot of the Song of Ice and Fire questions in the first half of the live stream. The second half of the live stream, we could branch out wherever you want to go. So I'll let you know what people can talk about with some expertise. I only have experts on this channel, and we will do that as we go along. Anonymous, thank you so much for the donation as well. Now we've already raised $661. Wow, that's amazing. Thank you. I really appreciate that. Okay, let's get into a few questions. Someone I just noted asks whether you can donate. Yes, you can donate without giving your name, so you can go in as anonymous. That's not a problem at all. Questions. Let's start. Actually, we'll pick up on something I might ask a few of my guests as they come in, which is to pick up on the latest news we've got in the world of Ice and Fire, the world of Game of Thrones, and that is some casting news. The spin-off of Game of Thrones, the prequel, House of the Dragon. We've now had 4 names that have been formally announced. I know there are a few other names out there in the ether, but we've so far only had 4 names. Bride of Fire says, what do you think of the released casting for House of the Dragon? Now, the names that we've got are Paddy Considine, who's going to be King Viserys, Matt Smith, who's going to be Prince Daemon, Emma Darcy, who's going to be Queen Rhaenyra, Princess Rhaenyra, and Olivia Cook, Alicent Hightower. Now, of these 4, I only know 2 well. It's probably the same to most other people know well. Paddy Considine is an excellent actor who has been, you will probably have seen him in something. He's been in things like Peaky Blinders. I saw him on the stage in The Ferryman, which is an excellent stage, and he was magnificent in it. He is brilliant. He has gravitas, but also a great kind of vulnerability to his acting, and I think he is perfect for Viserys. So he's somebody I'm very much excited about. Matt Smith, I'm sure we all know about. I'm a huge Doctor Who fan, so I know him from there. He was obviously also in The Crown as Prince Philip. I quite like this. I think there's every potential for this to go very well. He's got a kind of intensity and kind of nervous intensity to a lot of his performances, Matt Smith, that I think would work well for Daemon. He's also got the very Targaryen cheekbones, which work well for him. So yeah, I'm pleased about that. I think that there's a lot of good potential there. The other 2, I will admit, I don't know huge amounts about. I would love to hear in the chat if there's anybody who does know about these 2. Emma Darcy is Rhaenyra, Olivia Cook as Alicent Hightower. I could just, purely looking at the pictures, I would say Olivia in particular is almost exactly how I've always imagined Alicent Hightower, so that's a good start. But I'd love to hear what people say in the chat. Paint Witch, thank you so much for the donation. Renly's Peach, thank you so much for the donation. Hugely appreciate all of that. Samantha Louise 37, thank you. Anonymous, thank you as well. Anonymous donated $10. What a Todesprachen Leben Länger. What are Targaryen cheekbones like? What a very sharp, angular. This is it may just be the other actors that they've cast, but if you just imagine what Viserys and Rhaegar in particular were like, very sort of angular kind of face. Alicia Kingston, hi there, Alicia. Good to see you. Saying Olivia Cooke was in Bates Motel and Ready Player One. I think she'll be great in the role. Excellent. Good to hear it. Anonymous, thank you. Umberto Pena, thank you very much. Voice of Geekdom. Great to see you, Matt. If you've never come across, there's two great content creators there. Alicia Kingston has got the Song of Ice and Fire channel. I would highly recommend. She was on this channel a while ago, earlier in the year. Highly recommend you go and check that out. And Voice of Geekdom, Dan, does an excellent Lord of the Rings channel. If you want, in particular, his Silmarillion breakdown, if that's always confused you, then do go and check that out. He is excellent. So thank you both, guys. That's really kind of you. Anonymous, pardon me, Anonymous, thank you. That's very generous. $50. That's very kind of you. And right, let's go to questions from Ariel Winchester. This is as I say, we'll try and do a few Song of Ice and Fire questions first up, and then we'll try and move perhaps into a few other areas a bit later. Ariel Winchester, who I saw you donated earlier, thank you so much, Ariel, saying, hey Robert, hope all is well. It is, thank you. I really enjoyed your theory that Ashara Dane and Howland Reed are married and their kids are Jojen and Mira. Do you think we will see Ashara Dane in the books if this is proven true? Yeah, it's not just my theory. I put my own twist on it, but others have spotted the links as well and before me. But yes, I think there's a fair chance. So for those, there's obviously a long train of logic that leads up to this, but I personally am convinced that Howland and Ashara did marry. Jojen and Mira are their children, and they are currently hiding out in the Neck. Now, I think Howland Reed will definitely make an appearance. I think that because George R. R. Martin has told us that he will. He hasn't made an appearance yet because he knows too much. But if he makes an appearance, will Ashara Dane make an appearance? Quite possibly, although you do have to say is that we don't know what's going on in the Neck. We only ever read about literally 4 people in the entirety of House Reed, in the entire history of House Reed. We only ever know the names of 4 of them. So what is going on there, we do not know. Perhaps she will be left in charge when Howland heads off to impart his knowledge. I do not know. So I would love us to meet Ashara Dane. I think what will do for me, though, is confirmation of this theory that holds together so well. We don't, I think, have to actually see her in the flesh in order to believe it. Quick flick through. I think we had another couple of Anonymous. Thank you so much for $5. Anonymous donating $20. Thank you. This is all lovely. I think I saw who did I saw Sanrixian. Hi Sanrixian in the chat. Always try and give her a shout out and highly recommend you go and check out her artwork. So let's go to another question from Shar. And this one, actually, I'm going to probably drop on one of my guests when they come in, because I think it's a really interesting one, saying, hi, Robert, my question concerns Duncan the Tall. How did he get giant's blood down in King's Landing? Or is Osha wrong about spotting that trait in Hodor? This is what you could consider possibly a throwaway comment from Osha when she sees Hodor and she says he's got giant's blood, that one. Now, perhaps that's just a natural reaction to seeing an incredibly tall, naked man in the Godswood. I don't know. But we were sort of built up to this idea that Osha had knowledge and understanding of the way that the world was that others around her, particularly people like Maester Luwin, did not have. So if we accept the fact that Hodor gets his height from Sir Duncan the Tall, which I think we probably should, there's lots of indicators that is the case, then we have to say, well, does this mean that Duncan the Tall has got some giant's blood in him? Now, possibly is the answer to that. It's but we have no actual evidence. the fact is that the world of Ice and Fire has got a lot of characters who are quite tall. So Duncan the Tall is the tallest, but other than, say, the Mountain, probably. But in terms of you also get the Hound, who's very tall. Brienne is obviously very tall, leading people to wonder, and George R. R. Martin to hint that she is also related to him. But you also get people like Robert Baratheon, who was 6.5 feet tall as well. There are lots of tall characters there. This does not mean that they're all descended from giants' blood. It might just from giants at some stage. It might just be a saying. That would be my personal guess. I think that, I mean, I know it's not the most exciting or dramatic of the suggestions, but it's certainly the one that seems to make the most sense. That it's just, he just happens to be tall. If you've got a well-rounded world, then you will have some characters who are particularly tall. So that seems to be what's going on there. Thank you to Ellen. Thank you so much for the donation. Yes, for Sam ATF, yes, it is an open Q&A, so I'm going to try and pick up a little bit of questions across the piece. We've got some guests coming on later who've got expertise across a wide range of areas. So if you've got any Lord of the Rings questions, for example, do store them up, or questions about The Witcher as well, or Westworld, or even Raised by Wolves, which is something I've not seen, but one of the people who I've got coming on later has seen and is an expert on. So Girl Nettles, hi there. Thank you so much for the donation. And Tom Russon, thank you so much as well. Do you think Duncan the Tall will ever meet Tancel again? That's a really interesting question. I think probably yes. Now, so this is a character from the first Duncan Egg story, Tancel Too Tall. She was the person who was the puppet master's daughter, the puppeteer, who was attacked basically by Targaryen, and Dunk came to the rescue, and this is what led to the whole battle, the 7-on-7 fight, which was the kind of the culmination of the trial by 7 of that whole story. And then basically he seems to be trying to find her after that. She leaves. There are hints maybe she went to Dawn. So next up we see him having been to Dawn. There's a lot of hints that he's basically trying to find out where Tancel Too Tall is. I think this probably means that yes, at some stage we will see her again. Whether that is a happy reunion, I don't know. I suspect probably not, given the fact that Duncan will end up in the Kingsguard, so he won't be married. So that implies that he chooses not to, or perhaps is spurned, or something along those lines. So I don't think they're going to sort of end up being married ever after. Anonymous, thank you so much for the $20. Jenny Bird, thank you so much. That's very generous of you. Thank you. Anonymous again, $20. Anonymous, $5. Lady Nymeria, thank you. Kevin Warner, thank you. Thank you, guys. This is very generous of you all. Thank you very much. We're nearly at 1,000 already. Actually, $945 is excellent. If we can, it's a long stretch. I did one of these, or I did a charity premiere. It was back in the summer. I try and do these a couple of times a year. We made $2,700 in that total. If we can get somewhere near that, I would be absolutely delighted. So we're a fantastic start already at nearly 1,000, and we're only half an hour in. Thank you so much, everyone. That's very generous. hadn't really spotted this before when I was doing this, but you don't seem to be able to do sort of a super chat question with the donation, which is why I'm trying to keep as much of an eye on the chat as I can as they're going through. Jose Estrada saying, what do you think will be the most important change made by George R. R. Martin from the series? I don't think, I mean, perhaps isn't what you meant, but I don't think he's going to make any changes in what he was intending to do because of how the series ended or anything like that. I think that he's got very clearly in his mind where he's going with it. He makes a great play of being a Gardner writer, so he will see how the characters go and all the rest of it and change things as he goes along. But he has got so far through this story now that he's included so much foreshadowing. He's sort of set characters on paths that will almost inevitably lead them somewhere. We're pretty certain about a lot of the moving pieces. So I don't think he could make huge changes, even if he wanted to. And he's basically said he's not going to at all. So I don't know if that was what you were meaning by that, but that's my take on what George R. R. Martin has been saying. Anthony Coleman, thank you so much. Anonymous, thank you so much. Carlita King, thank you. Anonymous, again, thank you. And wow, we've made $1,000 already. Thank you. I really do appreciate that. That's well, in less than half an hour, I'm blown away. That's amazing. Thank you, guys. This is excellent. Jamie McKenna saying, was hoping for the return of the cloaked Sir Robert. Humorous old listeners soon. I will... maybe I will have that as an incentive if we get close to a big milestone later. For those who do not know, for the very first few months of this channel, I had as my avatar, I had a hooded cowl on, and people have asked me to be reprising that ever since, and I've managing to resist it. But I will, if we reach a certain level, I haven't decided what yet, I will perhaps put that up as a bribe if we get to a certain point, and I will haven't got it to hand, but I will put it up all over social media. Anonymous, thank you so much. $5. Catalina Costacci, thank you so much. That's very kind. Let's go to another question from one of my patrons. Eric Fogg saying, what's going on with the moon tea that Pycelle gives Marjorie? Is it actually for her cousins? Why would she ask Pycelle? I think this is... so for those who don't know, in book 4, I think it is, then we get Marjorie... and it's never made entirely clear what the exact situation is, but Marjorie from Pycelle gets some moon tea. Now, the hints are that this is for one of her cousins. I think she's called Eleanor, who is supposed to obviously be staying chaste and all the rest of it, but she seems to have been getting close to somebody that she saw in a tourney, and so the suggestion is probably this is Marjorie just getting hold on the sly, getting hold of some moon tea for her friend. Now we don't know. My guess is what is going on here is actually this is more about Cersei finding out, and if so, trying to pin the blame on Marjorie for something. I don't think this is Marjorie having an affair with somebody. I think it's not going to be that straightforward. I think this is going to be classic George R. R. Martin taking something and saying what the truth of the matter is less important than what people think about it, and what Cersei thinks about it will be I think pretty straightforward. I think we all know where she will go with it. Anonymous, $100. Thank you so much to you. That's incredibly kind. And Anonymous, $5. J Dead Redhead, thank you so much. Justin Thompson, thank you for the super chat. $7 saying, I'm a new patron and keep forgetting to submit my questions. Yeah, I try and do for all patrons. I normally at the beginning of my day, so that's, I don't know, early in the morning, I guess, over in America, I put something up on Patreon as a chance for patrons to submit questions in advance. Be asking, how do I plan to cover Winds of Winter, chapter by chapter, or another method? I haven't honestly decided yet. I think probably it will be, I will start off with a few headline videos about an overview, about specific issues which are screaming out to me, that kind of thing. And then after that, I will probably dig into it on a slightly more granular level, whether it's chapter by chapter or character by character. I haven't decided yet. Probably more likely to be character by character, I would have thought. But thank you so much for that. Question. Fletcher Reed saying, how good is Roy Dotrice with his audiobook narration? I really liked him. So for those who don't know, yes, I am going through, or I'd say re-listening to A Song of Ice and Fire, the Audible version, and that is narrated by Roy Dotrice. I'm sort of going through chapter by chapter. It's a very different experience listening to it, actually hearing somebody speak it to you emphasizes different things. You hear different things. You make links that perhaps you wouldn't otherwise. And I'm doing chapter by chapter, gaining a new appreciation for the way that George R. R. Martin does treat this on a chapter by chapter basis. Every chapter is in and of itself. It's a mini short story. It's got character. It's got some kind of issue that needs to be resolved, and then it does have the resolution at the end. And each chapter works along that kind of narrative arc. Anyway, I'm putting my thoughts up on Twitter as I go along if you are interested in that. Roy Dotrice, yes, excellent. I think idiosyncratic at times, it has to be said. Some of his pronunciations I don't always appreciate, but I think he did an excellent job with incredibly challenging. As somebody who does audio narration, I can tell you that's an incredibly challenging story to be doing with huge amounts of different characters. And having to get the feel right for every different chapter as well is quite a thing. Dawn, thank you so much for the donation. Max Looks, thank you for the super chat, saying, by the way, with the super chats, guys, what I'm trying to do here is focus people's attention in on the donations rather than the super chats these times. I will add up any of the super chats and I will personally donate that amount at the end of the stream to this as well. But if you can do it if you're wanting to donate, then do it via the donation rather than the super chat, because super chats, YouTube take a chunk off of it first. But thank you very much, Max, saying, I'd love to know what your thoughts on Sam's pink mast. Could this be Lightbringer? Personally, I think that Lightbringer is many different things, but I see I've got a guest who is raring to go, and he's somebody who is known to us all as the person who is going to be able to answer this question. Welcome, Aziz.
Hi, Robert. You're going to start me with that?
So why not? I will start you with an easy one. For those who do not know, there's many guests this time. Aziz is a stalwart of the Song of Ice and Fire community, and MVP every year. And History of Westeros is his channel, and you've also got, I'll just give you the brief intro first, you're doing Witcher now as well, is that right?
Yes. Well, thank you for mentioning that, and thank you for the very warm welcome. I really appreciate it, Robert. It's great what you're doing here. You're doing like you said, you're up to about what now? It's like 1,300 already, I guess. Almost, yeah. Great job. This is great, guys. So yes, I have a Witcher podcast now as well. It's called the Podcast of Surprise. And in fact, I released an episode literally 45 minutes ago. It's a short one, only about 15 minutes. Normally they're about an hour and 10, but this one's like a kind of a bonus episode. So we're doing chapter by chapter through the short stories, and then we'll be doing the same in the main novels and covering the TV show and occasionally do some lore episodes. And that's what this latest one was. But yeah, so if people want to ask some Witcher questions, that would be cool as well. But Azora High questions and Lightbringer questions are good too. That pink mask questions, maybe limit those to just one per episode. Though.
Maybe just the one. So yeah, as I say, what I wanted to do was to give people. We often do concentrate just on the Song of Ice and Fire here on these live streams, but I know people do love other things. So if you do have any Witcher questions, I've got a Witcher expert here to answer them. But did you? I mean, I'll let you have a pass on the Sam's pink mast if you wish, but I will take your quick thoughts. I think I'll probably ask all of my guests about this. I'll just take your quick thoughts on the casting. Is there anything in particular? The casting news, I've already announced who it is, who we've got just the 4 names so far confirmed. Have you any particular thoughts on them?
Well, I think that I don't have strong feelings, except that I tend to trust their process. HBO has a really strong record with casting, even with all the criticisms of the final season or the final 2 seasons, wherever you fall, the casting remains strong all the way through. I don't think there were many criticisms of that. Personally, I would have praised it the entire way through. Occasionally there were castings I didn't agree with. For example, I wasn't that into Lena Headey at first, but over time she became incredible, and I revised my opinion strongly. So I just that's where I tend to fall, is I believe that their record gives them a lot of credibility. And I think also it's interesting that they're casting for multiple ages. The Alicent and Rhaenyra castings are apparently for their younger selves. We may get different actresses for the older versions of them. Or they may be made up very differently. So, but it's probably just the younger version. So that alone changes the picture right there, and tells us that sometimes the news we get is missing a detail, or sometimes there's more to it. Yeah,
absolutely, and also it tells us something that we could have picked up a bit from the fact that we get casting for Viserys, King Viserys, in that this isn't just going straight into the dance. We're not going to have like episode 1 straight in with lots of dragons versus dragons battles. We're going to get some of the build up, some of the political intrigue that leads up to this. Possibly even, and I hope even, the whole first season is going to be that whole build up to the point at which we effectively get a war. So we will get probably more than just an episode of Viserys, of just him dying. I think that we will actually get a little bit of a lead up to that.
I agree. I would love that. Yeah, if we got, I think they want to maybe have it be a little. They wouldn't want it to be too much like a Game of Thrones with Robert dying and a similar time or something like that. So we'll see. Robert Baratheon, not you, of course. We wouldn't want that to happen.
Well, that's very helpful of you to clarify. Let me just do a few quick thank yous. Anonymous, thank you so much. That's $100. That's incredibly generous of you. Let me just have a quick flick through. Who else have we got here? Katie Smith, thank you so much for the donation. And another donation, thank you. That's 2 there. Nina Oz donated $20. Thank you. Denise White, thank you so much. Anonymous, $20. Beth Carolan donated €10. Karen Thomas, thank you so much. Clueless Fangirl, hi there, who may or may not be making an appearance later after she spoiled the guest list for this. Thank you so much. That's very generous of you. And I think that's me caught up. Let's just get, I'll throw it as I've got you here. Why don't we just go through a couple of quick questions? Let's go with Eric Ferg asked a question about Hyle Hunt. What happens with Hyle Hunt in Winds? Now, I'd love your view on this one, because he's a character he's not a main character. by any stretch of the imagination. For those who don't know him, he may have sort of had a background appearance on the show, but he's basically a book-only character. He basically follows Brienne around when she's on this sort of what at times seemed interminable search for Sansa Arya across the Riverlands and beyond, and ends up being caught with her and Pod by the Brotherhood, and is there being hung with them until Brienne shouts out a word, presumably saving them. So what would you say happens next to him? Is he just going to carry on following her around, or is there some more to his story, do you think?
I think he would follow her, assuming he's freed as well. I would guess he's cut down as well, but I guess there's a small chance that they hang him regardless. They cut down Pod and Brienne and not him. But no, I would expect all three of them to be cut down. And she now has a job to do, but he may also be a hostage to ensure that job gets done. Of course, I think Podrick's probably all that's necessary there. But last we see Brienne, she has conned Jaime off the road to go by himself to go meet up with Stoneheart, thinking it's Sandor Clegane. And we can presume that since it's her alone, that Podrick and Hunt are still at the camp with the rest of the outlaws. And I assume his fate is going to be tied to Brienne's. And so I guess that bodes fairly well. I don't expect Brienne's just going to die here. So I guess he's probably going to live on. He wants to marry her for her lands. He's pretty straightforwardly looking to advance in the world. But maybe there's more to it than that. I mean, he doesn't have to be just about his ambition. Maybe he'll be won over by her quest and her attitude. She's so inspiring, right? Brienne has that way that the way she made cynical Jaime into not so less cynical. Like, I mean, it's not all on her, but she helped inspire Jaime, among other things, to be the kind of knight he didn't think ever existed. So maybe she'll inspire a few other people that way.
Yes, although one thing I do find interesting, and this is an area that the Riverlands, I have to admit, that is probably the most, as far as I'm concerned, the most up in the air of all the things that we're going to have in the Winds of Winter. Most of the other plot lines, we can kind of figure out roughly where they're going. There are so many moving parts. Just if you just think about how many different groups there are in the Riverlands, just moving around all over the place. It's a matter of who meets who, when, and where. But I think the fascinating thing that we've not really dug into is the implication for Brienne is that this is her she's always been leading this very chivalrous, upright life, very sort of black and white, doing the right thing. Here, clearly, she does seem to be protecting the innocent, which is very much in line with her, but she is lying to Jaime, it would appear. And so she seems to be heading more into a slightly more morally grey world, which I mean, I don't know, I'd love your take on that one, but it's just is this just her doing what she feels she has to do in order to achieve saving the innocent people, or is this actually an important moment for her?
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. It's a lot like what Jaime himself faced, because he, as we're introduced to him, rather when we get to know him, when we're introduced to him, he's a totally different character. But as we get to know him on a more personal level, we learn that one of the first conflicts with him is the conflicting oaths. How if he's defending the weak, then he's breaking his oath to Aerys, because Aerys is ordering him to be cruel, or this and that, all these different kinds of things. And Brienne is at first judged him harshly for breaking his Kingsguard oath, but now out in the real world, she's seen how often oaths do conflict, and I guess this is an example of that, because presumably she knows Jaime that they're very likely to kill Jaime. She's not going into this like, oh, they're just going to talk to him. So yeah, so it's not just like you said, she's lying to him, but it's you could arguably say it's worse than that, because she's culpable in a way to what happens to him, and she would be naive to think that they're going to treat Jaime nicely, and unless certain other things happen. But she has to understand that killing him is likely on the agenda, even if
it is.
Yeah. Even if as readers we expect him to get out of it somehow.
Yeah, exactly. Although I had Lady Gwyn on here quite a while ago, actually, and we were talking through the Brotherhood Without Banners, and she spoke very eloquently on the triangle of oaths and promises that there are between Catelyn / Lady Stoneheart and Brienne and Jaime, because they've all kind of made oaths and promises to each other in various ways, and it's the question is, can they trust each other? Because what's going to happen in some way, shape or form, I would suspect, is so Jaime arrives and then he will be put on some kind of trial, probably an unfair trial, and Brienne will probably try and defend him and his honor, and it's just a matter of, can they convince each other that they are actually all doing the thing that they all want, which is find the Stark children, because actually that is what they all want to do, but can they trust each other?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think I agree with that scenario as well. It's obviously there's other ways it could go, but it fits so well because it's a way for them to get out of it honorably and to come full circle with a trial by combat from that group would be that would be fun and interesting. So yeah, the idea of it, of them fulfilling the quest, is fun to think about from the other side of it, because, well, Sansa will, I suppose, just emerge at some point, and Arya, they're not finding her unless she wants to be found. So that it's one way to think about whether they'll do it. The other way to think is like they're just gonna react to them popping up rather than find them.
True, although they may, and actually this folk had a second question, which I hadn't thought of it linking in, but it does link in. He says, any predictions for Jane Poole? Now, so Jane Poole, for those, again, this is mostly a book-only character. She was the person in the books who Ramsay married, and they pretended that this was Arya. And so she escaped with Theon. Now, in the books, we get the pre-release chapter, the Theon chapter, which was an early written one from George R.R. Martin. He has told us rather cryptically that he has been rewriting some of these pre-release chapters, so we shouldn't take everything that we read there as being completely true. But in that chapter, which I suspect is going to be mostly the same, Stannis sends her up to the wall with I think it's Justin Massey and Tycho Nestoris, and what Theon had been doing was saying, keep telling everyone you're Arya. Don't admit who you really are, because this is what he's been like all this time. This is in his mind. This is how you stay safe, is by doing this. And so if she takes him at his word, she arrives up at Winterfell, assuming she makes it, still claiming to be Arya. Now, normally, and I would love your thoughts on this one, Aziz, normally Jon's there and goes, you're not Arya, you're Jane Poole, I know you. But what if Jon's dead at the time? What happens then? Now I've got a sort of at that point you have to go off into tinfoil, because thus far you can map it out and it all seems to make sense. But after that, I've got a sort of a slightly tinfoil theory about what people would do and how they'd react. But I'd love your thoughts.
Well, yeah, I agree. It's going to be such chaos. It's so hard to predict what's going to happen at the Wall, because not only has Jon just been stabbed, we have confidence he will be resurrected, but when it was so fast on the show, but it wouldn't necessarily be super fast in the books, especially given the strong theories about him going into Ghost for a while. Even if that's only like one chapter, that could be substantial. So we can't take anything for granted there. The free folk reaction to Jon stabbing is potential for great chaos, for great upheaval, given that they were just fired up to go fight Boltons, and they were ready to go. Jon had fired them up in the shield hall, and and then they go charging out, and then Jon gets stabbed, and 1-1 has already been stabbed, and yeah, Jane Poole arriving amidst that, it is really hard to predict. But I think that calling herself Arya will be understandable. I think that she has information, and she might have a similar impact that the Hill clans wanted her to have, or thought she would have. In other words, they were fighting for her. It was a big deal that the Boltons had her there. It was a big motivator for them to join Stannis in the first place. So it's possible some of the same things will come up. After all, Ramsay, the stories about Ramsay are so awful. That's a motivator, for people to deal with someone like that. So it could be that, but we already have. I mean, that was already there. There were people, they were already motivated to go fight Boltons after what Jon said. So Jane Poole is tricky. That's it's tough to see what's going to happen. But I think that her eventual one thing she could eventually do if she survives all this is to tell Sansa what happened, and that'll be a lot of evidence against Littlefinger, because of what he sold her into. He put her through sex slavery, basically. So that Sansa wouldn't take too kindly to her friend being treated like that when she has power.
No, I think that's a really good point. Just a few quick thank yous. Anonymous, thank you so much for the donation. And again, Anonymous, Eric Ogg, thank you so much. The Purple Lord Leo Anansi, good name, $20. Thank you, that's very kind. And Amy Blackfire, thank you so much. And Anonymous, again, thank you, that's very kind. I think that's me caught up on the donations.
There's one more.
And here be Dragon. Thank you so much for that. That's excellent. We're now over $1,500.
Very
guys.
nice.
This is incredibly generous of you all.
Shout out to those guys. I know all three of the last three you named. Those are all Here Be Dragons. They have a channel over there as well, and
and so,
Amy Blackfire does too, and
Jordan Walker, I see as well, was in there. I'm not sure if I said that as well, but yeah, good people in the chat today. Thank you all so much. My Haidar Egerton, thank you so much. That's very kind. My wonder, by pondering, I don't know how tinfoil it is. It probably does get more tinfoily the more into it I go. But my pondering is, if she arrives at Winterfell and claims to be Arya Stark, then what might they being a big term, because there's lots of different factions and people and personalities at Castle Black at the moment, what might they do? Well, I think what they will have is Jon Snow's body that they didn't know what to do with after it got killed, so they put it into an ice cell. There's lots of foreshadowing for Jon Snow's body being put into an ice cell. That kind of makes sense, given the fact that there are lots of people and they won't know what to do with it. And I think that the logical answer, obviously, with the dead body at the wall, is to burn it. But if they have put it in an ice cell, the logical reason is because they could not agree what they were going to do with it. And when they last checked, none of the bodies that are in there have been turned into whites, so perhaps frozen works. So I do wonder whether they might then ask Arya what should be done with Jon's body, which would be a fascinating little take on it. The when it goes then on into tinfoil is to say, well, what would she say? Well, maybe she would say, okay, burn it. And maybe that's the point at which the thawed body, Jon Snow, emerges from the flames. So I like that, but I think that, as I say, that's a lot of ifs and buts get to that point. But I think that if she makes it to the wall, and there's a chance that she won't, because Ramsay is out hunting surely for her with his hounds. I think she probably will, because I think Tycho Nestoris will probably make it, and if he's in the same party. Then there's the question of, if she's staying pretending to be Arya, which she probably will, what happens then? So I think that's the sort of the teaser bit we've got there. So I think there's a few little possibilities. Let's go to Question from Catherine Furseth, who I think I saw did donate a bit earlier. Hi, Catherine. Saying, hi, Robert. George R. R. Martin's story is full of so-called grey characters, people who are neither all good nor all bad, but motives and beliefs vary a lot. Some believe in one god or another, some believe in prophecy, some don't, some believe in ancient legends, and so on. Are we ever given, and I've got quite a clear view that I've given on this channel quite a few times, so I'll be interested in your thoughts on this, but are we ever given clues as to which belief systems regarding faith, prophecy, and legends will matter in the end, which will help save the world from the threats of ice and fire? So what's your take there? Is there anything that's actually correct in all of this?
Well, there seems to be real power in both and a lot of overlap between the magics of R'hllor and the magics of, say, the children, and maybe the magic of the other, if we want to consider those three separate things. But there seems to be a lot of the magic of the others is kind of alien to us. We don't see it from any perspective other than it used as a weapon. We don't have any insider info there, at least not yet. But there's a lot of divination, right? We see things through the trees and we see things in the flames. And that seems like, yes, it's been misleading in Melisandre's case sometimes, but it's also mostly beneficial, I think. And thematically, it seems hard to imagine that, given the overwhelming presence of R'hllor worshippers in the 9 free cities who are being preached at by the head priest, that Daenerys is Azor Ahai, that she is the one, that she's the savior of mankind. I don't see how that couldn't be extremely relevant to getting people whipped up. And he has real magic like Melisandre does. So the things they're seeing, it's hard to see that wouldn't be useful if they're fighting against a great evil. But you could see how it would also be a destructive force if it's around afterwards, like a whole bunch of R'hllor worshippers coming to Westeros. I don't know if that's going to work out in the long run, if they're zealots and the worshippers of the Seven are meanwhile also getting riled up by a new leader. So those things don't work that well together. So I think the magic that Bran is dealing with is a little more focused on what's coming in a way that's less destructive to everything else around it. But I could see Melisandre and R'hllor and all those worshippers still having a big part in fighting against Winter. But after that, maybe that's when there's some problems. But it's a really hard thing to predict because of how limited that was in the show. But it's clearly predicted to be very big in the books, given all this preaching about Daenerys as a savior and all that with so many people.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, with the worship of R'hllor, as I say, on the show, it's kind of like downplayed to the point where we've only really got 2 who actually make any kind of impact anywhere. Yeah. But in the books, this is a huge movement. This is like the Protestant revolutions of the 16th century in Europe, the Reformation. This is rising up against the masters and all the rest of it. This is huge over in Volantis in particular, but right across huge amounts of Westeros, this movement that's going on. And that will, if the entire weight of this huge religion is going behind Daenerys, that is going to be absolutely massive. Yeah. And it's not Melisandre, we often forget she's a rogue priest. She went off and did her own thing. She's not there doing the things that everybody, that the sort of the official policy position of the priests of R'hllor. She's just on her own. We will see what the whole army, as it will be, I'm sure, of some kind, looks like when they finally emerge. Yeah. But my broader point, I think I wouldn't disagree with anything you said. Clearly, the kind of the magic of the weirwoods and things like the sort of the Children of the Forest, what Bran is doing, that is real in some kind of very real sense. What he sees actually happening, did happen. He can influence events and so on. So that is clearly going to have a huge amount of impact in what is going on. And the link between that and the others in some way, I think, is clearly also very strong. So that has to be a main part of what's going on. And the rest of magic there does seem to be other magic out there, just like not just the worship of R'hllor, but also you get the Shade of the Evening Tree paste as well, that kind of stuff. There's the warlocks we're using. There is real magic all over the place, and where George R. R. Martin again and again and again comes back to is the fact actually the truth of something, a prophecy, a belief, a god, whatever, is less important to the story than whether people believe it and what they do about it. Whether Melisandre's beliefs are true is less important than the fact that she does believe them, and she believes them absolutely, and that's what drives forward the action, is her belief, not the truth of her belief. And that, I think, is something George R. R. Martin keeps on coming back to. So at the end of it, we will see lots of things were true, but it was the way that people relate to them, whether they believe them, what they're willing to do with that information, that will be the important things.
Yeah.
Cersei's reaction to Maggie the Frog's prophecy, classic example. Yes, they seem to all be true, but what's more important is how she's reacting to them.
It's really important with Bran, like you say, and this is relevant to this because his first instinct with his powers is to replace what he's lost. He wants to walk around as Hodor because as they're exploring the caves, and he wants to, have legs and go back to see his family. That's the first thing he does with his powers. So yeah, it's a very different aspect. Melisandre is focused on the goal, and Bran doesn't understand what the goal is because he's a boy. So.
Absolutely. And I've just seen we have got another guest who has arrived and is ready to jump in. So we're going to be jumping an extra notch up on the intellectual level now with an even greater analysis. Here we go. The one and only Amanda, Disputed Lands, Crowfoot's daughter. Say hello.
Hey.
Oh.
Hey guys, can everybody hear me?
We can. You just froze. I gave you the big build up and then you froze. So, but
they're good now.
Connection doesn't appear to be too good. So, do you want to try coming out and then back in again? And I shall bring you back in, and I'll give you a.
Okay, I think I know what the issue is. I think that we've got some Wi-Fi going on downstairs, so I'm probably gonna have to go downstairs and see if we can fix that. So.
Unplug the Wi-Fi downstairs. Okay, and we'll see you in just a moment. But I think I saw her wearing a Kraken Tacos T-shirt.
You did.
That makes me very happy. I'm not very good at remembering to do this myself, but if my guests wear my merch, that's amazing. For those who do not know, before she comes back, Amanda has a channel, The Disputed Lands, where she does a huge amount of excellent analysis of A Song of Ice and Fire. Actually, while she's gone away, we've had somebody else who has appeared, another random guest has appeared here. Her Wi-Fi is working. This is Helen, the Clueless Fangirl. Say hi.
Hello, everybody. Sorry, my voice is better. I've been talking for 2 hours Star Wars just now, so thank you for having me. Hello.
Hi, well, great to have you. For those who do not know, Helen has the Clueless Fangirl YouTube channel, which covers Lord of the Rings. Also, you are an expert on all things Star Wars. So now is your opportunity, guys, to be dropping it in all those questions you've always wanted to be asking about The Mandalorian or what on earth all of these gazillion new Star Wars series are, or Lord of the Rings. Ask her about elves. She loves it. But I do want to do a couple of quick, I'll let you just do a proper introduction in just one moment, but I need to catch up on my thank yous. Barb Wright, thank you so much. That's very kind. Ross Lambert, thank you for the donation. Christina Waller, thank you. Who else have I got? Esteban Estrada, very kind of you. Bella Dream, thank you. Lady Pushkins, Scott Michael Dowling, that's very kind of you. Isaac, who else have we got? I've probably missed some. Donald Lucy, thank you so much. Anonymous, Ty Lowe, another anonymous. I think that's it. Me all caught up. Everyone, thank you so much. We are now up to $1,723. I am so excited. This is incredibly generous of you. And just for those who are new, this is all in aid of rescue.org, who's a fantastic organization going into the people who have been hit the hardest by natural disasters, by war, getting non-combatants out, setting them up, helping refugees back onto their feet. Amazingly important work. It's been a tough year for all of us, but it's been even tougher for some than for those of us here. Right, all that long preamble just to lead up to Helen. Hi, how are you?
Very good, very good. Excited for questions from the chat or from your patrons about, elves. I mean, please don't ask me about dwarves. I had to do a stream with Aziz, who's sitting here, about dwarves, because he literally asked me, I asked him, can you come on my stream? And he wanted to talk about dwarves. All of, like, this is literally my least favorite of anything Tolkien ever wrote, but okay.
Well, dwarves are clearly better than
I know
elves,
how to pick them.
Let's just leave it there. We do have a question, as you're here, we do have a Lord of the Rings question. Maester Mansa, one of my patrons, saying, why did, and this is it's not an elf question, but you'll have the answer anyway. Why did the men of the East and South fight for Sauron? Was it out of fear? Had their leaders fallen under the influence of the rings or something else? So what was going on there?
Ooh, what was going on there? Well, the thing is, the Númenóreans had colonies there. So they lived on a blessed island that was called Númenor, therefore the name Númenóreans. Those were the ancestors of Aragorn, who you know from the movies. And they built colonies there. And the thing is, there's something like black Númenóreans. Those are Númenóreans, well, who kind of worshipped Sauron. And this is, they inhabited the lands south and east of Gondor. And I do strongly think, I must say, I'm not a super expert on the 3 Lord of the Ring books. I'm more an expert about the time before that, so First and Second Age and the ages before. But I do think this is why they are strongly connected to Sauron, because the Black Númenóreans were the ones who were the leaders of these factions there. And they always fought against Gondor.
They did, and there's also there's one other thing I would add to that, which is one of the ring bearers, at least we know, was a
Camul. Yeah,
absolutely. So there was at least one of the people who would turn into a Nazgul and therefore had great power, because the rings, they didn't just turn them into wraiths, they did give them great power, great magical abilities, and all the rest of it, great leadership abilities. So there was at least one person who was there rallying, but the people from that part of the world were inclined towards Sauron well before that anyway, I would
exactly, like say. Literally it was a colony of Númenor for many centuries before that, and then they were strongly influenced by Sauron, who was in Middle-earth all the time,
Absolutely. Let's quickly, I think I had another couple of contributions. Voice of Geekdom. Hi, Dan. Again, very kind of you. That's £20, very generous. Buck Bigler, thank you so much. I think that is it. But as we've got you talking, I've already taken Aziz's thoughts on this. What are your thoughts on and I know you're not as big a fan of Game of Thrones, but you will be aware of the casting. No, I'm not going to ask you detailed. So so what's your thoughts on Hyle Hunt in The Winds of the casting? Are you aware of the casting for the new Lord of the Rings, either the new Game of Thrones spin-off or Lord of the Rings, because we've had a lot of casting news out of that?
Well, Lord of the Rings, yes, but I must say I literally know like one or two people, but that's it. But the House of the Dragon, well, I'm more excited about. I don't know a lot about the casting, but I love what story this is about, because this is literally one of the only things I really loved. The story of Rhaenyra is her name, right? The Dance of the Dragons. Yeah, I love that time period, and yeah. Good. I don't know anything about the casting. I'm sorry.
That's
Shame.
all right. Well, the Lord of the Rings, they have deliberately, I think, been trying to cast people who are good but lesser known actors, which is something. I mean, Game of Thrones certainly
What
did
they
that,
did, yeah.
a lot of that.
Yeah.
And there are a couple of names that stood out. Lenny Henry, British people will know. He's very famous in this country. Was a stand-up comedian, then a very good actor, founder of Comic Relief, if you know the charity. And also, his name escapes me for the moment, but there was certainly somebody from Westworld who is going to be over there as well. So they have got a good cast going on. Amanda has returned. So let's bring Amanda back in. Hi. Do you have internet this time?
Hi, guys. I'm not sure. You're gonna have to tell me. So we've got like Wi-Fi and a lot of people in the house. So we got a lot of people using different devices. So I had to ask everybody to stop.
Well,
is this better?
We can hear you. Yes, absolutely. Your audio is fine. Your picture's sort of jotting about a bit, but we can hear you perfectly, which is all we need. I think I've already given you the big build up, but I was saving a question for you when you did arrive, because I know this is something you have thoughts on. This is into the world of A Song of Ice and Fire again, Patchface, who we were talking about a little while ago. Now, Noscar was saying, hi, Robert, do you have any thoughts on how Patchface will factor into the storyline of The Winds of Winter? He's often forgotten, but I think his creepy friendship with Shireen is interesting and worth a deeper dive. So do you want to just answer that one briefly? What's your take on where he's got, what's going to happen with Patchface?
So there's a lot of theories going on about Patchface, and can you hear me?
We can now, yeah.
Can you hear me? Okay, so there are a lot of different theories out there as far as Patchface and what is going to occur in the Winds of Winter, particularly with Shireen. And there are some people who believe that Patchface might be some sort of malign figure that's somehow associated with the Great Other or the Drowned God. But really, we haven't really seen anything in his character to make us believe that he is going to somehow be in line with the others, or in line with the Drowned God, or in line with this or that. Basically, he is more of a tool to possibly show the readers different as far as like symbolism goes. And he's also Princess Shireen's like best friend, which is, really sad when we get to the Winds of Winter. If what's going to happen with Shireen, we're told that this is probably one of the developments in the show that's going to translate. So Shireen being burned is probably going to happen. And when that happens, that's Patchface's only friend too. And so he is probably, going to not take it, So it's possible that he might go berserk and in a fit of, despair and rage. He might try and save her. He might end up getting burnt alive as well in his attempts. So what I see Patchface as far as his ending, his character ending going, is potentially trying to save his only friend.
I see that Aziz was nodding through a lot of that. You're up for this idea of him going absolutely ballistic when Shireen starts getting burned, are you?
Yeah, well, maybe not specifically that, but yeah, just going in general when she's burned or killed, either during or after, because yeah, like she said, that's his only friend, and Melisandre is a little spooked by him and sees skulls and blood. The skulls seemed consistent with what she sees whenever she sees evidence of the others. When she sees Hardhome, she sees a bunch of skulls. She sees the mist and the skulls together, and when she sees Jon, she sees skulls because he's going to get stabbed. So the skulls seem to be presence of the undead, and if Patchface is, it makes sense that Patchface might be considered undead after, given the circumstances of his being around, if we want to not call him alive. I don't know exactly what to call him, but you know what I mean. So yeah, I would be worried about doing something to someone's only friend when they're not all there and possibly undead themselves. So
yeah, and I think if I was starting off on a little bit of tinfoil with Aziz on what might happen in the wall earlier, so I'm just going to finish it off with the biggest bit of tying together lots of different bits of tinfoil into a kind of like a tinfoil daisy chain here. If you're going to have a burning up at the wall, which I was suggesting might happen with Jon's body when Jane Poole arrives up there and everyone thinks she's Arya, you would presumably, in order to save wood, because wood's a valuable commodity, just have the one burning. If you're going to be burning Shireen, why don't you burn the body of the dead Lord Commander at the time, which then would create for the most majestic epic chapter ever when Shireen gets burned to death, when we get Patchface going ballistic and Jon Snow coming back from the dead, all in one burning at the same time. It just works perfectly for me. As I say, I've gone well beyond anything that I can justify with any facts at this point, but I love the idea that might be what's going to be happening. Let's go with a question. Question from where are we at? Brennan Barnes. We're still on a Song of Ice and Fire. So the Lord of the Rings fans, if you up your game with some questions in the chat, then we'll get to them after this one. Brennan Barnes saying, "What's your gut feeling about what Sorella or Aleras is up to in the Citadel? Doran seems to insinuate that whatever she's up to there is unrelated to his personal plans." Now, for those who don't know, again, this is another book character, not in the show. We get this Sorella, who's a sand snake, one of Oberyn's children. She isn't there in Dawn when all of the stuff that's going on, and it's insinuated that she might be in Old Town. And sure enough, when we get to Old Town, we get this character who is called Aleras, which is Sorella spelt backwards, and everybody assumes that this is her, pretending to be male and in Old Town. Why don't we start? Amanda, why don't we go to you? What's going on there
with Sorella? So the Sand Snakes are kind of going into Duran's plans as far as we've got some going to King's Landing. We have one in the Citadel. Basically, they are, in a sense, what I believe is possibly spying. I don't know if he's there to actually do anything as far as, put some sort of pieces into place. It's possible. I see her as more spying into larger centers of knowledge and a place where a lot of the communication is happening. It's a huge communication center that, with the Rookery and the Ravens, with the Maesters. So I think her being there, I guess, planted in the center of knowledge over there. And honestly, I think it's just a good opportunity for her to kind of pursue possibly something that she's wanted to do. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'll take Aziz's thoughts on this in a moment, but I tend to the boring view of this is that she's literally just wanting to study, and that's why she's there. It's not that she's off on some secret mission. I know that would make it a lot more exciting if she were on some kind of secret mission. But I think the Occam's razor suggests she is just there to learn stuff. We know that Oberyn went there just to learn stuff. So why shouldn't she be there? I mean, Aziz, have you got a more exciting theory?
Well, maybe not more exciting, but I've got a joke, which is that the Maester, what does Marwyn call the Maesters? The rest of the Maesters, he calls them the gray sheep, right? Alaris is Sorella, and she takes after her mother, so she looks like a Summer Islander. So she's the black sheep of the family. Yeah.
Okay. I was waiting for the punchline, and then I realized you'd already done it.
The old Steve Martin method. You didn't realize there had already been a punchline before I had moved on. So, yeah, no, but I think it's interesting because she's in danger. I mean, if Euron is coming to Old Town, I'd be worried about maybe that's a trigger if the Sand Snakes are alive later. Like, I don't see them dying on Euron's ship like they did on the show or whatever, and nothing like that. But it would be interesting if they were dragged into a conflict, or Dorne was aligned against Euron because he killed Sorella just incidentally amidst so many other people or something like that. But yeah, it is hard to figure out what's going on. The whole the Sphinx is the riddle is the Sphinx. I've been around since that book was published. I've never seen a strong theory on what's going on with her that I really thought that's a good theory. No, George is going to pull a trick on us or do something really sneaky, but you might just be right. It might just be something like, okay, she's just there to learn, and that's all there is to it. It's just something fun that's going on.
Yeah. I mean, I think it doesn't have to be more. I think it's just because we're expecting everything to have an extra layer to it all. Barrel Raider just in the chat saying, for Doctor Who fans, where do you recommend beginning? Just with the reboot would be where I would start, or perhaps start off with somebody like David Tennant or Matt Smith when they started off would be an excellent place. Wednesday's seconds, and thank you so much. A very generous donation. Anonymous, thank you so much. Ashley Moore, thank you for the donation. Timothy W, thank you. The Late Escapist, thank you. That's very kind of you. Anonymous, thank you. That's $50. That's very kind. Do you think that's all of them so far? I will just drop one. I haven't spotted any specific questions in the chat about Lord of the Rings, but I want to make Helen feel welcome, so I'm going to give one.
I'm having fun in the chat. Oh, good. It will come.
You take this as a sort of an underarm delivery. That's a very cricketing analogy, but anyway, this is Lord of the Rings. The TV show is not going to be about Lord of the Rings, the book. It's going to be set in Numenor. So could you just give us what is it that you're expecting actually in terms of an overarching storyline? Could you give us a quick sell on why is it that we should be looking out for this show?
Well, funny enough, Dan, who is in the chat as well, Voice of Geekdom, and I had a very interesting interview with a well-known Tolkien scholar, the Tolkien professor, Corey Olsen, and he is friends with Tom Shippey. And, he didn't let out any secrets, although I do know, I think he knows a few things. And we know Tom Shippey, who's again, well-known Tolkien scholar, and who was at the set and who helped production with, let's say, he's kind of the story group, what the story group is for Star Wars. He helped with the writing and with the law, to be correct, because we do know Tolkien estate, this is like the holder of Tolkien's legacy, is very strict with what you can do and what we can't do. And the thing is, we always thought they just bought a certain set of rights, which does not include actually the 3 movies. Obviously, I think you can mention stuff, but he let out that they had another contract, a contract after the contract, and so we don't really know what rights they have. But what we know is the story will take place in the Age of Numenor, the Second Age, and that is centuries before the timeline of Lord of the Rings. And it's a very interesting timeline because, again, Numenor, this is mainly men focused, and I do think you see a lot of the casting you saw is not just men, it's elves as well. I assume maybe a bit of dwarves, although I don't think dwarves will play a big role because what we know of that timeline, dwarves are not very much into the story. But so Numenor is an island that was given to men. It's like kind of the paradise, right? And that island drowned at the end of the century because people became too greedy. The timing is the timeline is super interesting because it also includes the forging of the rings, what you just mentioned, So the ring wraiths, they were men before. This is what Galadriel says in her epilogue of Lord of the Rings, and they were kings of men. And I have a very fun theory video because I theorize on who the Witch King actually is. I think he was a Numenorean king. And it's very interesting because I think the timeline of the forging of the rings and Sauron as a person, because Sauron was not always the eye or a necromancer or however he was portrayed. He was, he had the form of an elf, a very beautiful person, elf-ish, looking-ish. Just like Aziz. Yeah, Aziz could basically play him. Yeah, so long story short, that is the plot of that, and we won't have many characters who we know. I mean, Elrond could be one of them. His twin brother actually was the first Numenorean king, so very interesting. But what I wanted to say is it's not, these are 3,000 years we're speaking of, so we don't know exactly what timeline. The forging of the rings was a very specific time of about 100 years till he gave out the rings. And I think it's super interesting, and I'm very, very excited for that. And I think a lot of people don't know and don't expect too much because they know the Lord of the Ring movies or books, and you can't dissatisfy that many people like it happened, in your fandom with season 8 or whatever. I'm very hopeful. I think they have lots of good people on board and lots of money.
They do have a lot of money. I hear conflicting reports of exactly how much, but the rights alone apparently were $250 million, which is
good to be a Tolkien these days.
It is indeed. To own a bit of the Tolkien estate would be amazing. Yep. Just because I forgot to mention it earlier, that's a wonderful top you've got on there, Amanda.
I was hoping you would notice.
Is that? Oh, was that one of my merch? Wow, I hadn't spotted that. That's amazing. For everyone who says I'm not good at plugging my own merch, there we go. That was seamless. But I'm glad you're enjoying it. But Helen, I agree absolutely with so the idea here, we get Numenor. This is set a long time back before the Lord of the Rings. We will probably have a few characters we might recognize. People like Elrond will still be around. Galadriel will still be around. Yeah. They will obviously be a bit younger. And we have got, as you say, Sauron could be like Aziz. We like to think of him as this is the sexy Sauron era. When he's there beguiling everyone with his youthful beauty. And basically, I think we're likely to be seeing the story of the downfall of Numenor, which is when Sauron just works his way into the society and brings down the greatest civilization that humanity ever knew. So I think
instead of Lord of the Rings, it's Lord of the Earrings. Mm.
Yes, right. Exactly. Although I think we will see, you're on fire with these jokes today, Aziz, I have to say. We will see at least 3 of the ring bearers there on Numenor. We get told that 3 of the future ring wraiths were Numenorians, so I think that we will see 3 of them there. Yeah. it would be
Although they
amazing
lived
to figure out who they
thousands of years, they lived thousands. That was the forging of the rings was around 1,500, 600-ish. And the drowning was 3,000, whatever. So it's weird, in one series, how do you cover 1,500 years? Because the Numenorians die, right? Because you want to relate to characters. And then all your characters, they live long lives, but not that long. So let's see how that will go. Maybe with like looking back in time and having these kinds of elements drop in.
That's absolutely possible. And talking of looking back in time, somebody who I was live streaming with every week about a year or so ago, and also talking about people with delightful visages. Here we have the wonderful Hax Dogma. Welcome, Hax. It's fantastic to have you.
Hey, everybody. I'm so glad to be here.
Hax, for those who don't know, has got a YouTube channel called Hax Dogma. In fact, you've got 2 YouTube channels now. I'll let you tell us about that in just one second. Expert on all things Westworld, Raised by Wolves, which is going to be my first question to you, and a great many other things. But why don't you just say hi to anyone who doesn't know who you are?
Yeah. Thank you so much. So I have a YouTube channel called Hax Dogma on YouTube, of course. And essentially, I just talk about TV shows. Talk about Westworld, Raised by Wolves. It seems that, I really stay to a kind of tech central story and the philosophy that comes from that I really enjoy. I do have a second channel or started a second channel. Unfortunately, it only has one upload because, reasons. But and that's called The World Story. And essentially the idea was that, just talking about fun, tidbits of history that are otherwise, unknown. Hax Dogma, main channel. Thank you so much.
It's an absolute delight to have you back on. Black-Eyed Lily, thank you so much for the donation. We are now at $1,930, guys, if we can make this up. And thank you so
Amazing.
much. Alejandro Martinez, thank you so much. If we can make this up to 2,000, that will be amazing. Hax, I'm starting everyone off with a nice, easy question, except for Aziz, who I dropped it in the deep end with. But Raised by Wolves, I want to ask you about this because this is something that lots of people talked about, and I know people have asked me about here on these live streams a few times, and I haven't been able to answer. At Christmas, hopefully, I'm going to have a little bit of time to do a little bit of binge watching of things. Should I watch Raised by Wolves, and if so, why?
Absolutely, you should watch Raised by Wolves. So it feels, I've seen a few comparisons to Lost, and I think Lost was a great show. But there's a lot of Westworld in there. There is a lot of great storytelling, and this entire first season was really just like this build up to what I think will be the drama for multiple seasons. And it's like, it's this, what happens if we take militaristic religion that essentially destroys all other religion in what they believe to be a holy crusade, and you tie that with technology. You have these robots that essentially act on the church's behalf and are these great machines of war. And what happens if you take that robot and turn it into a mother caretaking device, and then you send that off? The world is dying. You send that off onto a distant planet, and it's the Earth's only hope for humanity to survive. And the entire first episode builds this narrative of the church being bad, and these really great tension as the children start dying, and you have to figure out wow, is this the end of the world, and what is this show going to be about? And ultimately, like, what it develops into from that first episode is amazing. It is a great drama, and where it ends in the first season is spectacular.
Excellent. Well, I'm almost convinced I've got to look at what the other two things that I've got on my possible list are: the Queen's Gambit, which everyone tells me
Oh.
is brilliant, that I have to watch, and also Dark, that I've been putting off for far too long. But I've got told that that's too dark for Christmas, so I shouldn't watch that over Christmas time. But I will come back to you with another question in just one moment. But I've just spotted that we did get an ALF-related question from to be asking Helen. So just before I lose it in the chat, I shall ask it. This is Joel Faulkner saying Fingolfin went one-on-one with Melkor and managed to wound him. Turin is supposedly destined to kill Melkor. How would either of these have got on versus Sauron? And could they have destroyed the One Rings? There you go, Helen. The floor is yours.
Aziz is like full airs. Yeah. So, I mean, the one story, Turing coming back, is not canon, people. So the Dagorach, as it's called, like the Doomsday, is that like Doomsday in the Bible? I think so.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that's actually not canon, but yes. So the question is, how could they win against Sauron, or what is the sorry?
Yes. How would they get on against Sauron?
I mean, Sauron is less powerful than Morgoth. Sauron was the kind of servant. So you must imagine Sauron is kind of a lesser angel than Morgoth. Morgoth was the actual baddie before he was banished by the host of the Vala and some elves. Earendil. Well, he would. I mean, I think Sauron is less powerful, but then Morgoth spilled all his energy into the land, so Sauron kind of is more powerful. I think it would be the same. Like they would lose, but it would be a pretty good and amazing fight. But again, I think Sauron is less powerful than Morgoth overall. And power is portrayed different in the Third Age, where Sauron is the main player, than in the First and Second Age.
Yeah, I think I would agree. So Sauron is generally kind of a notch down, particularly I think obviously he kind of loses his physical form and his and all the rest of it later on.
But he focuses his power. You know, this is what the ring symbolizes. And Morgoth spread. Morgoth's ring was the whole of the world, right? He put his power into building the orcs, into malicing, you know, like all the beings and the whole land. And Sauron didn't do that. He focused his power in the ring. So he was kind of more powerful in that way, but then he wasn't, because he couldn't command over everything. That's my take on it, but
excellent.
Canon.
No. Well, your take is canon as far as I'm concerned. Erin, thank you so much for the $20. We also had Mara Lee. Thank you so much, Mara. Hi there. Great to see you. Anonymous, €50. Thank you. That's very kind. Anonymous, $20. Also, and I think all that it brings us above $2,000. Everyone, thank you so much. That is amazingly generous of you. I'm completely blown away. If we can reach, as I say, when I did this last summer and I got to 2,700, if we can reach that again, I would be absolutely blown away. So thank you all so much. I want, however, to go back to a Song of Ice and Fire question, because I've got two experts in the room. So I'm going to drop this one on you. And this is one that I had to look up for two reasons that I shall say in just a moment. The question is from Eric Ferg saying, is there any significance to Tormund's runes and all his titles? Now, the two things I had to look up were all his titles, because he has got many of them. Just to remind myself of what they all were, he has Tormund Giantsbane, Tall Talker, Hornblower, Breaker of Ice, Husband to Bears, Thunderfist, and a few others. And his runes, for those who don't know, he's got runes down his arms. Now, I will allow whoever, who should we go to first? Let's go to Aziz first on this one. Aziz, is there any significance to any of those things? You're on mute.
It would be fun to learn what those runes meant, for sure. As far as his nicknames, I think, and his titles, it's a neat way of showing how similar the free folk are to the rest of the people of the Seven Kingdoms, which is a huge overarching part of Jon's storyline, is how the free folk are people just like the rest of them, and how part of his job is to help facilitate that connection, sort of like Daenerys is doing in a different way over in Essos. So I think most of it's thematic. I'm open to ideas on theories, but I'm not sure that there's anything more to it than that. But of course, that is a lot. Thematics are a big deal. The symbolism between the two peoples is important. But yeah, I'm not sure. I'd love to hear what Amanda says, though.
Well, you know what? I think we actually had a conversation about this. So Aziz and I are working that is going to be on your channel. We talked about Tormund and his gold bands. There's only one other time where we see gold bands with runes on them that are north of the wall, and that is going to be on the horn that they found in the giant's grave. Okay. And the way the horn is described, Jon says that it's so big he could put his arm through it, and it's banded with gold with the runes on him, and it's kind of similar to how the Dragonbinder horn is also banded and has the Valyrian glyphs. But anyway, so how Jon mentions that he can stick his arm in there, and when Jon is introduced to Tormund, he talks about how massive and huge his arms are, and then he says that, and then they're banded with these golden bands with these runes on them. And so it's my theory that it's possible that the origin where his family had gotten that those bands is actually possibly off of a horn, similar to the one they found in the giant's grave. So those are my thoughts. And when you actually get to Tormund's names, one of them is like Hornblower. So you actually see something a little bit thematic there as well. And Tormund has a lot of giant type of symbolism around him. They call him giant. He literally walks around saying "har" all the time. He's got a lot of stuff going for him as far as that goes. So yeah, if you ever get a chance, somewhere on r/ A Song of Ice and Fire is a Reddit post by me likening those golden bands of Tormund to the golden bands that are found on the dragon binding horn.
Wow, I did not know that. That I'm going to go and have a look at that the moment we finish. I have to say that's an aspect that I'd never picked up on before. I have to admit about is the sort of the runes and all the rest of it. His names, I love the theory about the sort of the father of bears, the idea that perhaps he might be the lover of Mage Mormont over on Bear Island. I love that idea. That works really well for me. The Hornblower of Horns, Hornblower, works. I think it's probably a nod to the Hornblower stories that George R. Martin has said that he enjoys, but also clearly the fact that we get the Horn of Winter up, which is somewhere up in the north, or well, Sam may well have it down in Old Town at the moment, but it will clearly become important. And the fact that we have this recognition that the person who blew the Horn of Winter last time was in fact a wildling, as a member of the Free Folk. So I think that is clearly a strong link going across there as well. On the show, he was sort of created as this character of just being the wildling. You look at him and he's kind of represents everything about what wildlings were, and they used that as a kind of a shortcut on the show. They did that a few times. They would have, Grey Worm was like the representative of the Unsullied and so on. But in the books, then he is just one among many. So we shouldn't just take him as being generic. He is quite specific to who he is. But Hax, had you here for a while. You've been listening to all of our theories about
course. Love
fandoms
it.
you're not a part of, but I do want to talk to you about Westworld because this is something we're both huge fans of, and I know lots of other people in the chat are too. Westworld, it's one of these shows. They do it every 2 years, which is quite useful in a time of global pandemic. I guess they just skipped the year when they couldn't do any filming anyway. But what do you think? Where do you think they can go with it next? Because they have to relate somehow to the world that we're in at the moment, and it did look as if where they were going to go was some kind of global apocalypse of some kind. What would you say, a sort of a high level, what do you think series 4 is going to be about thematically?
Yeah, so I've been thinking about this a lot, and I think that each season of Westworld really deals with a technology or a theme of technology, and last season it was all of the seasons it's been about data collection, and that built up into the point where you have Rehoboam, where data collection is at the biggest scale humanly possible. So how does it transform into that, or from that? Now that we've seen that system utilized and seen people ascend to an almost godlike status using that system, something that theoretically could happen. What is the big the next big bad from that? And I think ultimately there's two ways that they could go. Seeing Bernard covered in what could be decades of dust. We could start the next season in 2 decades later or 100 years later, where humanity's just gone and he is now trying to figure out what to do next. Or he could just be sitting out the next season while he sits there, and we still have a timeline that we need to go through now. I think that we still need to go through a timeline now. And I think, ultimately what we're going to see is Caleb and, Maeve probably still going through actions, deployed by Dolores, and probably going to cause the downfall of humanity, whether they realize it or not. Probably not. Probably they're all going to think that they're the best intentioned and want to do the best and have a utilitarian point of view, until it comes to, do we value robot lives or do we value human lives more? And then I think Caleb will realize that he might not be on the best side of this.
Yeah, and I think I'm with you with the idea that they're not going to do this many years in the future. If partly because I think Jeffrey Wright is too good an actor just to drop for an entire series, but also I think that kind of then muddies the water of who's human, who's a robot, because the humans would all have to have aged 20 years, and it'll suddenly become reasonably apparent, I would have thought. But hey, they change the rules almost every season. As Andrew K in the chat says, each Westworld season could basically be its own separate series. The look and feel is always evolving. So yeah, I wonder whether they are going to go for this kind of slightly more apocalyptic feel to it.
And I also think that Bernard, in where he's going, going into the Sublime, I think that there's a lot of opportunity for storytelling there. He's going to find an answer. He's going to find something that will help remedy the situation that they're in now. And the situation is that there is that demarcation point that the system saw. And, I think we're all accepting what the system saw as factual. It did its best with all the data that was available, and it saw the end of the world. And Surak maybe tried his best to prevent that in not the best ways possible. But I think that in the Sublime, he could be looking for that information that will otherwise, without it, cause the end of the world. And him doing this will be the final hour, 13th man, save the day kind of thing.
That would be excellent. I'd love the idea of Surak turning out to be this good guy in the end. That would work. Susan McNeely, thank you so much. Very generous donation. Thank you, Sheely. One, thank you as well, Mara Lee. Again, thank you. Incredibly generous, Mara. You are a wonderful, generous soul. Thank you so much. And we also had, I think, one more. Heather Vitt, thank you so much for that donation. And Sydney Harris, thank you very much. We are now up to 2,200, so it's going really well. Isaac, I see you've dropped this question a couple of times, so let's pick this one up, saying, query about Mance Rayder. Maybe, Amanda, you can pick this one up, and his role in the Winds of Winter. His name interests me. Mance being a clergy house, i.e. the Winterfell crypts, and Raider, possibly a play on Raider, Raider. What do you think, symbolically? Or has Amanda frozen completely? I think Amanda's frozen completely. Aziz, do you want to pick this one up while we see whether Amanda's still there?
Can you?
What was the question? Oh, there she is.
She is. The question was about Mance Rayder, and his role in the Winds of Winter. His name, Mance being a clergy house, and Raider being a perhaps the Winterfell crypts link, and Raider being a possible play on Raider, Raider. What's your take? Is George R. R. Martin trying to tell us something? Where's he going to be in Winds of Winter?
Well, I do think it obviously depends a lot on what you think about the veracity of the pink letter. If it's accurate, of course, it doesn't have to be accurate in every way. If Ramsay has Mance captured, then I wouldn't expect a whole lot more from him. But let's assume he either survives that or isn't in fact captured at all. I would think that his goal, the most important thing to him, is his child. So that's, of course, has a built-in twist, given that his child is in Old Town, not in, or perhaps Horn Hill, not on the wall as he thinks. So there's a lot of forks in this road for him. But he obviously, if he can do good service for Jon, then Jon will owe him a favor. And I think that's part of what he's counting on Jon's honor a bit. But now Jon's been stabbed, so that's another thing that just throws a whole, it makes it really difficult to predict. But it's not only the elimination of him from the show as well in a different way. So I'm excited for him, though, because there's a lot of possibilities. He's a really interesting character. George set him up to be great at fighting, which wasn't bothered with in the show, and that there might be some meaning to that. So there's some reason for optimism, but it's super hard to predict other than what his goals are. So I try to focus on that.
Yeah, Amanda, I think you're back. Somebody in the chat, I think it was Carl Karsnark, saying Amanda's picture is not frozen. She's just got very good posture, which I can well believe. But if you are there and can hear me, just any thoughts you have on Mance and the sort of the symbolism behind Mance Rayder, which I think is quite fascinating.
Okay, so the first thing that I heard in the question was specifically with the name, with possibly a clergy and then also like Raider. I haven't looked into that. So, that's definitely something too. I don't really know if his name is going to possibly play a role in giving us a hint as toward his future. So like Aziz said, it really is kind of up in the air, and it's either is the pink letter true, or is this false information that is being fed over to Jon with the pink letter? And I'd like to say yes, that it's false information, and more Mance Rayder. I really like that character, and I do think that there are some things to possibly suggest that this is just information that's being sent to Jon in order to possibly get him move him into action. And so what I see with Mance Rayder is with him and his spear wives, we see them, the spear wives, getting helping to get Lady Arya or Jane Poole out of Winterfell. But one thing that I'd be very handy is the information that they've obtained while they were in Winterfell that they can possibly give to Stannis' army. So that's something as well. There might be possibly an advantage that Mance Rayder might be able to give the Northerners some information that's going to help with the battle. That's as far as the character long term, I have a hard time seeing how his character is going to play out any further than the Winds of Winter. So if he survives, that's great. He may be one of those characters that doesn't survive Winds. But anyway, either way that you look at it, I like to think that Mance is going to possibly be rendezvousing with the Northern Army and providing them with information.
Yeah, I like that idea a lot. I think the only thing I would add in with Mance, I think, yes, the raiding the crypts does seem to ring true. We certainly seem to be getting lots of hints that he's been asking us, that the Spearwives have been asking about the crypts, which seems to suggest that perhaps that's where they're going to be hiding out. If they do, it does make me then wonder, well, what do you do if you're hiding out down in the crypts for all that time and you're an inquisitive person, particularly if you're an inquisitive person who's spent months, if not years, digging up graves of old heroes searching for the Horn of Winter? What do you do when you suddenly find yourself in a place that has got many graves of old heroes? Is this perhaps a place where he might carry on his search? There is indeed a bit of the crypts that has it's sort of fallen in, and then the older part that you can't get to. I imagine Mance Rayder is the kind of person who would see that as a personal challenge if he's locked down there for a long time, perhaps to work his way through. So I think that what we will probably find is that Mance Rayder will start to discover stuff while he's down there in the crypts all this time. That's my take on what his role is. I see, Helen, you've been causing lots of trouble in the chat. If we did get to $5,000, then yes, indeed, I would don my elf uniform. I don't have it on me, but I will happily put pictures of it up across all social media if we got to $5,000. But that's not an official promise yet. We need to get a lot closer before we can get to that one. But we did have anonymous YouTube person. Thank you so much for the donation there. And I think we must have had another one to Ravens. Thank you so much. That's very kind. Donald Peoples, thank you. Lost for words. Wow, thank you. I am lost for words. £200 is incredibly. Having scoffed the idea we would make it, suddenly it's shooting up again. Thank you. That's very kind. I really appreciate that. And I think that's us caught up. Helen, have you spotted any more?
Star Wars. I have a
You have a Star Wars question in there. Excellent. Well, I shall do the as I did to try and get questions for you, guys. If you have got any questions, I'll come back to you just one moment, Helen. If you've got any questions for Hacks about Westworld or Raised by Wolves, now is the time to drop them in. But Helen, go. What is the Star Wars question, and what is the answer?
Ooh. No, so Rublinson88 is asking because we were talking in the chat about the Mandalorian, and if I think if a Jedi will pop up tomorrow in the finale. So tomorrow for me, I don't know when you're watching it. So yes, but I do think it will just be hinted, because again, I do not think this will be a show about Jedi. I do think this will be the Outer Rim and that part of the galaxy where this is not the core galaxies. I don't think the Jedis and Luke looking, because this is the timeline of Luke looking for scholars for his school he's building, and we know after Order 66 there are literally like 8, 9, 10 Jedi canon, what we know from canon, are left. I do think, because I haven't seen a body, and we know literally people come back all the time, just saying Darth Maul, so I do think Mace could show up. This is just my canon and my wishful thinking. What I actually do think, it's either Ezra from Rebels or it will be Luke himself, but just, you know, hinting at there is a Jedi, like showing Luke's cloak, or, you know, he was wearing the black thingy during that time. So something like that, because I don't think they will de-age Mark Hamill a lot, and I don't think they casted a new Luke yet. Yeah. So I do think Roblinson liked that answer. I want Mace to show up, but I do think it's either Luke or Ezra from Rebels, which a lot of people won't know who haven't seen the animated shows. But it's cool because Star Wars wants to make, Disney wants to make money and wants you to watch the other shows as well and stay on Disney Plus. So that would make sense.
Absolutely, and I would love Mace Windu to be making a return. That would be fantastic. Can I just ask you though, what are the other? Because I'm sure we all picked up vaguely this when Disney said, "And we're making lots of Star Wars shows," and then just like threw them all at the wall. What are they making? Just so we're clear, is it just lots of new TV shows like The Mandalorian? Are they cartoons? What's going on?
Everything. They announced cinematic movies. They announced cartoons or animated shows as they're called, Robert.
Animated, they're cartoons.
Yeah, that's like so 1900 of you.
Well, I know. Well, I was born in the 1900s.
Yeah, so Aziz, by the way, I have to ask you if you're coming on Saturday, because Kyle said if I ask, you will come. So I
Oh yeah, I forgot to tell him, didn't I? Yeah, I'll come on and
yeah,
talk
okay,
about
so
the finale.
on
That sounds
Saturday,
cool.
Aziz come.
Well done. Well done.
Sorry.
I was just saying, well done. Yeah, well
They
done.
said, well done.
We got him.
Yeah, you got him. No, so yes, they announced 10 things. I do think there will be more, and they're not spoiling stuff. So I do think there will be more. But what I'm most excited about is, and I think what most of the people here will know, is the Obi-Wan show, which is a limited series. And I do think it will be apparently 6 episodes. And they've already started production, right? So that could come out end of the year or in 2022, if we survive 2020, that is. And don't jinx it, people.
Yeah, nearly there, guys.
Yeah, so that will, the Obi-Wan will be very high production, and it will be like a cinematic experience. And I do think they will bring it to cinemas as well, but it is placed on Disney Plus as a show. And then Ashoka, again, a character from Clone Wars, loved by many. She will get her own spin-off show. Then there will be a super good, this is what I'm most excited about, there will be the Acolytes, it's called. This will be a female-centric Sentet show about a dark side user. So that is very exciting. We don't know a lot about that, but I do think it will play in the time, because I do think it's about the rule of 2, yeah, so that's super. Bane could play in there, who was the one who invented that rule, and yeah, it's very exciting. And we can see a young Yoda in a lot of shows, so I do think they want to give you some characters, so you get the feeling, okay, I know at least one character. This is not in a galaxy far away where I'm completely lost. So yeah, those are the shows I'm really interested in, and there are a lot more. As I said, 10 shows. Taika Waititi is getting a cinematic movie. Thankfully, they didn't announce anything Rian Johnson. Thank God. So yeah, it's very exciting to be a Star Wars fan right now, and I do think it's a lot, everyone can pick whatever they like. If you like animated, if you like to know more about Palpatine, if you know more about, the Rebels, it's really cool. It's, if you want to get more canon lore or the old school lore coming back to the now canon timeline, it's everybody will be happy and can pick their show.
What do you think of the theory that Boba Fett's real name is Roberto Fettuccini?
Canon.
I haven't heard of that, but I'm sold. I'm definitely. Well, my prediction is Boba will turn on them tomorrow because he's Boba Fett. Come on, and if Mace Windu shows up, he literally killed his father. So
Whoa.
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, this I'm loving this. So, you might have mentioned it, but is there a Lando series?
yes.
So, do we know any details about this?
Why
Is
are
it
you
starring
interested in
Donald
that one?
Glover?
Oh my god, you're so boring. You're interested in the Lando show. That's like
No, I'm
literally the
boring.
least.
This is fine.
That's like literally yes, there will be a Lando show.
That's all you need to say about it. Okay, so we had a very generous donation from someone called Hax Dogma. Thank you so much, Hax. That's incredibly kind of you. And I will reward you by giving you a question about, I believe
good.
this is a Raised with Wolves question, from the Purple Lord Leo and Atsi, saying, can we get a discussion of Mother's origins? I missed that the church created her. So does this mean something to you?
Yeah. So essentially, the church created them, but the church created them using instructions that were given to them in scripture. So essentially, this, where the story lies right now, and without any theory crafting, taking what an android says as exposition strictly to us, we were told that humanity was given this religion, and when analyzing the scripture and coming to understand what their religion would be, they found this technology, and it was this antimatter dark photon kind of technology, sci-fi technology, and it essentially it allowed them to become a superpower using this religious technology. And so that's the origin of the necromancer. Now, the necromancer, a single necromancer, was captured by Campion Sturgis, who is kind of like the essentially he saw the flaws in the church, and he saw the flaws in the religion and what they were actually doing to the earth. And he decided to make a plan to take the fate of humanity into his own hands. So he captures one of these powerful necromancers, and essentially creates Mother by giving her the caretaking programming, and pairs her with a service model that is designed for comfort and kind of like a luxury android, and there you have the mother and father that ultimately take the frozen embryos, shoot off into space, warp into Kepler 22b, and the start of the story.
Excellent. Well, I've not watched it, so I have absolutely no comeback. Has anyone else watched Raised by Wolves out of the panel?
But not, I gave up after episode 2. Hags, what happened?
All good things.
Excellent. Well, I shall try it out and see whether I get beyond episode 2. Let's go to a question, a Song of Ice and Fire question. We'll try Amanda with this one. So this is Jenny Bird saying, hi, Robert. Lately been catching up on your videos while decorating, wrapping Christmas presents and baking. This is a thing. I love to hear what people do when they're watching my videos. Do you have any predictions for Val's role in the Winds of Winter and beyond? So Val, this is another character who's up there at the wall at Castle Black, the sort of a princess beyond the wall, although she probably wouldn't accept the title, so they certainly wouldn't give it to her. But what's your take on her? She's a fascinating character in the books. Amanda, what's going on with her, do you think? And you're on mute, by the way.
Oh, Amanda.
Can't hear you. You're on mute.
Oh, there we go.
Ah, that's better. Okay, excellent.
Hey.
You hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So the interesting thing right now, that for some reason, Stannis, when he offered John Winterfell, it seemed like Val was part of the package deal, it's interesting because it seems as though Val is going to somehow be married off. We have the knight that was trying to steal her, who met a very violent fate through 1/1. But we see Val's hand being offered to Jon. We see people trying to steal Val. I do see Val as possibly like a pawn, because she's actually a beautiful woman, and she's very desirable. And so I see her more as a pawn that's going to eventually be used, and I do see her possibly being joint marriage. There's a lot of Val Jon shippers. If you take a look at the forums, you can see some theories on how that would happen. And there's actually a really, really good post that was done about did Jon steal Val? And if you ever get the chance, take a look at it, because they make some really good points. Like when Val had asked if Jon had killed the man that she was actually with, she was trying to, because that's kind of part of stealing a woman, is killing the previous man that owned her. Or not, I hate to use the word own, but had stolen her to begin with. So like she questions Jon. She was like, "Were you the one that did it?" And there's a lot of different flirtatious stuff going on between Jon and Val. And anyway, there's a really good post that maybe Jon unknowingly stole Val, and so Val may actually see herself as already being taken by him. So anyway, if you get an opportunity to take a look at that.
Excellent. Aziz, is that your take as well? Do you think that she thinks that she now, again, we don't like to use it, but belongs to Jon?
Well, maybe it's interesting to see what they're going to go with, as far as what George is going to go with, as far as Jon's capability as in that way, whether he's going to be fully functional or not. So whether relationships are on the table for him, probably will be because of Daenerys. So, but I don't know that, but I kind of doubt he's going to have a relationship with her if anytime soon. If he does, it might be at the end. If he's alive, I would expect her to live, and I think I'm looking forward to her interacting with people, like maybe someone like Sansa, who will be going north. And if a bunch of people are anyone who escapes the wall will end up at Winterfell, most likely. So there won't be many free folk leaders left after everything. Most of them will die. She might be one of the few left. She might be the most someone to rally around to whatever people want to go live back in the north, beyond what was the wall, assuming it's broken. Something like that. She would be one of the few leaders left after it's all said and done. So there's that. There's all her warnings, talking to Jon about grayscale is an important part of her role as someone that's facilitating the same business we talked about with Jon earlier, and being a point of connection to make the free folk and the people of the Seven Kingdoms not see each other as enemies, rather than something to fight together with. So if that works out, if they fight together, well, then that's something to build on in the aftermath. But maybe that's too optimistic. Maybe she'll just die.
Yeah,
she'd make an interesting looking white.
She would. I mean, I think I do like this idea of her being one of those who heads north at the very end with Jon. I mean, on the show it was him and Tormund, but I think it would work probably even better if it were him and Val heading north at the end of it all. As you say, she has got a very clear view that she thinks that Shireen should be killed. So this is not actually when we have in our minds that this is going to happen, or some sort of version of the same way, but actually there will be other people who approve of this because of the fact that she has got grayscale, and a lot of the wildlings think that actually that's something that should be got rid of. So yes, she may, and she's a very influential voice, so she may well be somebody who gets support behind this idea of killing Shireen. So I think she has got an important role to play there as well. We had a couple more donations coming in. Jennifer Tomayolo, thank you so much. That's very kind. And I think I had some more. Might have completely missed them. Bobby Sperry. Oh, that's very generous. Thank you very much, Bobby, for that. And I think Peggy Warren, again, very generous. Thank you so much. And then I'm back up to this Hax Dogma guy, who's very, very kind. I think I saw one in there, a Westworld question, actually, just if you could clarify, Hax. Dolores is the main Dolores, Dolores Prime, as we called her. Is she gone now?
Yes. And then in a very Westworld way, no. Yeah, I think that Dolores will exist. In a few forms. Pearl wise, we can confirm that she is in the Lawrence model still. I'm pretty sure. And I guess in terms of Dolores Prime, I guess with what she has learned from the point of leaving the park and all of that after the cradle was destroyed, it is probably likely that she's completely gone, that her story, the Dolores Prime story, is over, and it was simply to build up to the point in which Maeve and Caleb are going forward, a possible force for good. But this is Westworld. There is still a ton of ways, 1,000 ways that she could still be in the story. The actress, I think, we'll see in form of visions, simulations, so on and so forth. So Evan will be on the show still, probably. And yeah, but Dolores Prime probably gone. Still a little bit of wiggle room there.
Yeah, I absolutely. So I think I'd agree. They're not going to get rid of Evan Rachel Wood. I think that they will definitely keep her in there. But the set of exact memories and experiences that we called Dolores Prime is gone now. But the other Dolores and the possibility of other Dolores is still out there. So. And I forget, because it's always a long time between Westworld series. I always forget. I think there was even one more Dolores that we didn't actually get to meet in that season. So the Berlin one, perhaps. I don't know, Helen, whether you've run into her. Yeah, that's you. Okay.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. I couldn't remember, but I did have a Star Wars question, if that was all right.
Yeah, go for it. Yeah.
So Miss Fangirl. The Clone Wars. I've been suggested this. I'm sorry. The animated series, The Clone Wars. Is that right?
The cartoon. Yeah.
The cartoon. Yeah. So.
Yes. Oh God! Stop
I've been told by a dozen people that it is worth the watch. It is very much a great story. Is that a shared consensus? Yeah.
Yes, it's amazing. So if you ever wanted to know more, because I do think if you've seen the prequels, there's a person behind the Darth Vader mask, right? But I do think the prequels don't answer everything about Anakin and how he literally in 2 minutes turned evil and became this evil machine, right? And oh wait, my computer tells me he will shut down now. Sorry. Westworld all over. No, it's late. No, so so a lot of questions are still open, and I do think people felt this is weird, and this is why many people complained about the Anakin story, because he is the protagonist, he is the main character of this whole thing, right? Yes, Luke as well, but he's his father. So it is amazing, and you learn a lot about the character, you learn more about the galaxy, you learn about him and Padme in another non-creepy way, like the dialogues are less creepy. And no, it's really, I love it. And Robert, you like it as well, right? So
I do, yeah. I've not gone all the way through it. I've done the first couple of seasons, but it's and apparently it gets better, but they are certainly good and
Yes.
fun and engaging and
Yeah.
all the rest of it. There
No, they
were
are.
a couple of filler episodes, I would say.
Yeah,
but
and
generally,
even Jar Jar.
No.
Because you said, you know, your Jar Jar, even Jar Jar gets redeemed-ish. You know?
Wow. Okay.
Yes, because they help fighting the Gungans, help fighting the Empire. But it's really cool, and you see the rise of Palpatine, because Palpatine is one of my favorite characters ever. And you know, you just think, oh, it's just an evil guy with a in a cloak, right? But he's not, and his politics, and I love Star Wars politics, and it's really cool, and you learn a lot about that. And what I can recommend to you is the Rebels series. It's so good. It's I actually like Rebels more than Clone Wars, and you don't need to see Clone Wars to understand Rebels. You
Okay,
just
and-
need the movies, and Rebels is so good, and it's less. I think it's 4 seasons ish, something like that. And this plays into the Mandalorian. A lot of the Mandalorian characters are Rebel characters.
Very cool. Yeah, I'll definitely do that. I've you know, it's been on one, and you know, honestly, Robert, I shared the same thing with, you know, it was just a cartoon. But then yeah, I started watching some anime that a friend of mine suggested. Shout out to Lindsay. And yeah, there's so much storytelling and so many different mediums. So I've kind of wanted to explore other things.
But you forget it's a cartoon. It's not
Yeah.
for children. Yes, children can watch it, but it's more. It's like it fleshes out the whole universe, and it gives you backstory, and it's really good. Yeah.
Very cool.
One thing, as we're on Star Wars, one thing actually I'll happily take anyone's view on. So one of the returning people in, I think it must be the Obi-Wan series, is going to be Hayden Christensen, apparently.
Yes.
Now,
Yes.
I no shade at all on the actor. It might well have been the writing, but I do not remember that characterization particularly kindly.
Mhm.
Am I just alone in this, or is this? People seem to be very excited that he was returning, and I was like, "Well, why?"
Yeah, I'm excited because, like, yes, every time I think of the prequels, I can see his face screaming, and just, you know, some of the lesser parts where you know, maybe his acting doesn't come through, but I have seen him in other things that I enjoyed him in, and yeah, exactly, yeah, and I think that this is a chance to redeem himself, and not even like, people like him, you know, not everybody hates the prequels, you know, or his specific acting, but yeah, I think more opportunity for him to grow and really show what he has. I'm excited for that.
Yeah, and he was very young at that time, and it
Yeah.
was really was a lot. Lucas not being a person. Yes, he can create this universe. Please don't write dialogues again, ever.
Well, I shall drop in my one favorite bit of Ewan McGregor trivia, which is that Ewan McGregor, you probably heard it before, but Ewan McGregor's brother is in the British Air Force, and his call sign is OB2.
No way.
Oh, so cool. So
So
cool.
you're welcome. Let's go back to A Song of Ice and Fire. In fact, I think I had another donation. Just anonymous. Thank you so much for 20 Canadian dollars. I think that is. Thank you so much for that. That's very kind, guys. If we can get this up to $2,000, the whole point about this, actually, I shall take off my glasses and do the serious thing again. The whole point about this today is to be raising money for an exceptionally important charity. We've all had horrible years, but our years have been lived. Yes, we may well have been in isolation. We may well have had loved ones who've been suffering, maybe even worse. But there are some people in this world whose entire lives have been destroyed by natural disasters or wars that are just not appearing on our TV screens at the moment, because, or even our Twitter feeds or anywhere, because our attention is so focused in on what's happening in our part of the world right now. But there are people who are just being completely displaced, who are losing absolutely everything right now. And one of the charities that goes in and actually tries to help those people who are there, who have nothing left in life, no other means of support, is rescue.org, international rescue. That's what they do. They go in, they pull people out from war zones, non-combatants. They rescue them. They help people who've been affected by natural disasters, and they just try and get them back onto their feet. If you can possibly spare a little bit of money, it would be incredibly well spent, and it will be quite literally transforming somebody's life. So that's what we're about here. I would love us to be able to get up to $3,000. That would make me incredibly happy. And I know that the guys came on here as well. They were all really pleased to be helping out this cause. So if you can afford it, that would be fantastic. Thank you so much. Anonymous, thank you so much for the quick donation there. That's very kind. I was going to go to a Song of Ice and Fire question. I had another one. Oh, Cold Hands. Yes, this one. Let's go. This seems like an Amanda one to start with. This is from Lexi Bruner, saying, could Cold Hands be the 13th Lord Commander? If the 13th Lord Commander was a Stark, it might explain Cold Hands' willingness to help Brandon Stark above the wall. So what do you think to that? Is there any chance that Cold Hands could be that old?
So the 13th Lord Commander was the Night King. So so from the question, I'm guessing that she's asking if the Cold Hands is the Night King.
I think that's the implication, yes.
Is that what they're asking? Oh, yeah. I don't think that Cold Hands is the Night King. I hadn't even considered it, to be honest with you. I don't think that, some people have suggested that Cold Hands is like the last hero. I don't see him as being one of those main characters that had played that much of a role way back then. He may have been one of the Night's Watch brothers that participated in the Battle for the Dawn. If you actually take a look at the legends, it's not just Azor Ahai. When you add the song "The Night That Ended," they had mentioned that it was the Night's Watch themselves that actually participated in the Battle of the Dawn as well. So he could have been a brother, during that time, during that era. I just don't see him as being one of those main players, because those main players seem to have had a lot of power, and a lot it suggests that the Night King was brought down and that he probably did not survive. I know that Cold Hands is undead, but I don't see that as a possibility. So it's possible. Anything's possible in fantasy. I just don't see that Cold Hands as being the Night King as something.
Well, I shall throw this to Aziz. I mean, I think I would agree with you on that, but I shall throw this to Aziz on a who do you think Cold Hands is question, just with the sort of the intro to this, that we did have one of my favorite little bits of tidbits from George R.R. Martin, that we actually got a little him replying to an editorial question in the margin once that we've seen here, when the editor said, when there was a section about Cold Hands, saying, "I think this is Benjen. Is this Benjen?" And then he just wrote, "No." And that's it. And that's so we know that it's not Benjen. But that leaves open a whole load of other possibilities. Aziz, do you know who Cold Hands is?
Well, my best guess is he was one of the Rangers that was with Blood Raven / the Three-Eyed Crow on his last mission, because we know that he was one of the brothers. He was the Lord Commander. He would have had men with him when he disappeared. And he also had very loyal men that took the black at the same time as him. When he joined the Watch, he had a good chunk, a couple dozen of his personal guard took the black with him. So if you're him and you're going out on rangings, I feel like you take your most loyal men a lot of times. So I think he's probably one of the Raven's Teeth. That was what they were called. And I think he's just torn to shreds now. I don't think he's even a character anymore. I think he was killed outside the cave, which implies he's probably wasn't someone really important before. Or if he was, then I mean, what would be the purpose of him being someone important if his body was just destroyed as in the process of helping Bran get to the cave? So I tend to think he was someone more recent. I think it's not always super cold beyond the wall. They have warmth there sometimes. So I don't see how a corpse could have been around for a super long time. If he's one of the Raven's Teeth, one of Blood Raven's guards, we're only talking about 50 years. So that's even that's already kind of pushing it. So but there's plenty of ways to make that work. So that's a lot easier for me to those dots connect more easily for me, and kind of makes sense given what we know about the three-eyed crow.
Yeah, I think I would very much buy into. That's my best guess. Sorry, Amanda, did you want to come back on that?
I wanted to piggyback off of what you said, Z's, because that's very interesting. Because when Bran actually sees his father in the vision, Blood Raven makes this comment, and he's like, "Do not attempt to bring him back." And so it gives us a few, extra pieces of information. First of all, number one, it's possible to bring somebody back with the power that they have. So, and second of all, Blood Raven's about it. So, maybe that is one of the Raven's Teeth. I think that's pretty interesting take that you have there, that it could have been one of his companions. And being that, according to Blood Raven, it is possible to bring someone back, that might actually be the case. So.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that all makes complete sense to me. The only thing that I would sort of slightly pick up on was Aziz, when you were saying, how can he be important if he's just there to be helping Bran on his journey? I think George R. R. Martin is going to have lots of characters who die just to help Bran go along on his journey. So I think that we've already had Jojen, we're going to get Hodor. There's going to be a lot of people who die just to get Bran going on. But yes, one of the Raven's Teeth does make a huge amount of sense to me. Anonymous, thank you so much for the donation. Ola Gall, thank you as well. Another Anonymous there, and I think who else was there? Murray D, thank you, very kind. Bob Motto, again, very kind of you, thank you so much. Mary Laura Newman, thank you. Anonymous, 20 Canadian dollars, thank you very much. I think that's us caught up to speed there. I have one. It was actually from the same person. This is from Lexi Bruno. This was something, Amanda, I know is something you've studied a reasonable amount about Targaryens and their dragon blood. So I shall throw this one at you. Do marriages outside of the Targaryen bloodline result in a generation of, quotes, mad Targaryens? Could this be further proof of Targaryens being genetically mixed with dragons, i.e. dragons could be self-sustaining and that they can lay and hatch their own eggs? Targaryens similarly do that in incestuous marriages. So what do you make of that? Is the fact that Targaryens marry their brothers and sisters, does that provide extra evidence about this sort of dragon blood idea?
Okay, so at the beginning of the question, she asked if marrying outside of their family causes the madness. Is that what I heard?
Yep, that's where it started. Yes.
Okay. So let's start with the Targaryen madness. So a lot of the Targaryen madness has to do with visions. I have talked a lot about that, and so has Joe Magician. We've actually done a live stream. Joe Magician has a one video called Pyres and Blood that you may want to check out. But one of the things that Targaryens are afflicted with is visions. And so we see Daeron having being so afflicted that he has to drink a lot in order to be able to deal with some of the visions that he has, playing a role in other characters as well. So and Danny even is one of them who's having these visions. And for example, not necessarily a dream vision, but one vision that is probably going to haunt her are the visions that she had in the House of the Undying, where she's told that she has 3 treasons. And so she is going out throughout her life with a very high level of suspicion of everyone around her. And anyway, so when you take a look at the Targaryen madness, a lot of it has to do with the fact that they are afflicted with these visions, and a lot of them don't know what to do with it. They don't understand it, and they don't necessarily try and understand what it means. But anyway, it's something that just kind of happens. And so if you are marrying outside of the Targaryen bloodline, you would think that they might have a less chance of having those visions. George R.R. Martin has said that his genetics are more magic than anything. And so it's kind of hard to pinpoint, like if you have a Targaryen marry a Valyrian, or a Targaryen marry a Stark, or what's going to happen. The other thing, when we're talking about the madness that we see with the Targaryens, is the fact that they possibly do have dragon's blood. And one of the things that I believe the reason why humans were used in the creation of dragons is to make them more tameable. So we do know that the dragon was created through a cross between a fireworm and a wyvern. Okay, so fireworms are mentioned that in I think Jaqen H'ghar mentions that they do not love men, and a lot of slaves had died at the hands of fireworms. And obviously fireworms are over there in Valyria, and they're kind of crazy. So if they would have been able to have tamed and ridden a fireworm or used fireworms in any meaningful way, they would have done it. But they do not love men. And wyverns are also said to be incredibly ferocious, more ferocious than dragons. So, and again, if wyverns could be ridden, we would have a wyvern rider, right? Because dragons were eventually led to extinction. So what's the next best thing? It's going to be a wyvern, but nobody can ride it because it's incredibly ferocious. And so it's my belief that humans were used in order to make dragons, 1, more intelligent, because dragons are mentioned to be very intelligent, and 2, in order to make them more docile and tameable. Okay, because the Valyrians were originally said to be a race of shepherds. And when you take a look at one of the mentions with Daenerys and one of the slaveholders, it said that peaceful people make. And anyway, you get a very meta line when they're trying to dragon in. They make the mention of a dragon is not a slave. But anyway, it's a very meta thing there that's happening. But when you look at it, the thing with Targaryen madness is, first of all, they have dragon blood. So they have the blood of the fireworm and the wyvern in there, of very ferocious animals. So number 2, they have prophetic vision. And so I would think that if you were to dilute that blood, you would have less of a chance of having this madness.
Okay.
So that's my take.
I think that's a good time. I think the answer was no. You explained it with the excellent erudition. I like that a lot. Thank you. I also liked the Helen's voice sounds like honey being poured into my ears comment in the chat. Take.
I'm voicing Galadriel a lot in the last weeks and months for various YouTubers. If you want to hear me
Well,
portraying
Galadriel's voice should
Galadriel.
definitely sound like honey being poured into ears, although the visuals don't quite work for me, it has to be said. But the sound, like the sound of it. Some thank yous, Anonymous. I think I've not missed out. Anonymous, thank you so much. Mary Laura Newman, thank you. Bob Motto, Murray D, I think I might have said thank you to you guys already. But Anonymous again. John Martin, thank you. And another Anonymous, thank you. I think that's caught up. We're now at $2,885. That means we're just over $100 from the 3,000, and we're just under half an hour to go. So I think we can do this. Okay, have we? So Hax, we've not heard from you for a little while. Have you? Have there been any more Westworld questions coming up?
I haven't seen any more Westworld questions, but I did want to say that the origin story of dragons there, that was amazing. The fact that you were just able to recite that off and with such intimate knowledge was just so impressive. Well done. I love the idea that there's just like fireworms. Yeah. I love the idea that there's just fireworms and a whole part of the story that we haven't seen, and there's a lot of parts of the story that we haven't seen in the TV show, of course, but just that there is so much more of this rich lore to explore.
Absolutely, yes, and welcome to the wonderful world of Amanda. So this is what she does.
Yeah.
You just set her in the right direction, and she will drop huge amounts of knowledge all over the place in the most wonderful way. Question. Let's put this one to Aziz. This is Julia Erickson's asking this, and I shall paraphrase because this is something that I'm looking at. I'm doing a reread or re-listen actually of A Song of Ice and Fire at the moment. I've just started on book 1. I'm about a third of the way through it. The first time I've listened to it, and it's a very different experience listening to it. You get different emphases and all the rest of it. One of the things, and my random thoughts I'm putting up on Twitter if anyone's interested in that, but one of the things that I am looking out for is the theory that I have sort of wavered on the most over the last 2 years, which is Tyrion Targaryen, and I'm looking this time to see whether I can get any extra hints one way or the other to actually come finally to some kind of conclusion. What's your take? Is Tyrion a secret Targaryen, Aziz?
Well, I've been wavering on this one for a long time too, back since 2003 or 4 probably, so a good decade and a half. I thought that A Dance with Dragons made it more likely, and by more likely I mean 20-25% chance, but then I think the TV show knocked it back down a bit. I think it might have come up, not that they would have done it, but the showrunners mentioned some things that George told them that blew their minds. I really think they would have mentioned that if that was something that he told them that was a big reveal. They would have been like, he's what? But that didn't, Then again, Dany being stabbed wasn't a big surprise to them either. King Bran, Hodor, and Shireen were the only big surprises. There were probably more surprises, so that's not an airtight argument. But either way, the fact that they didn't do it, that it's a knock to the idea, but it's certainly possible. One idea is that George hasn't even decided. He's set himself up for the possibility. I mean, by now he probably has, but he may not have. 10 years ago, like by the time A Dance with Dragons was published, he may have decided to leave it open. He was still deciding, because that's why we debate it. There's no one thing you can point to that's like, this proves it's definitely not the case, or nor can you go the other way and say this proves it's definitely true. So I'd say there's a chance, but I would lean against it, and I don't have a strong opinion on whether I want it to be true or not, because that's something that inevitably comes up when you talk about this one, is that people weigh in on how much they like it or not. It's very contentious. It's a lot of people hate the idea, and that tends to have a big role in the discussion, which I'm not sure how much George cares about whether people will hate it or not. He might if he knew, but I don't think he knows because he's not an online guy. So whether I doubt he's even aware of people's thoughts on it. He might be blown away that people are even thinking of it as a possibility, but he might be like, okay, well, they figured everything else out. Why not that? So we'll have to see. So I still give it pretty small odds, but not like tiny. I think it's 15-20% chance, something like that.
Okay, that's quite smart. It's smaller than I'm going into this reread, putting it about 40%, but it's gone up. I have to say, in the first couple of Tyrion chapters, the amount of dragon imagery surrounding Tyrion in those first couple of chapters of his is huge. He talks about dreaming of having a dragon, staring into flames for hours, wishing they were dragon fire. He's reading a book about dragons. There's huge amounts of stuff coming out, and George R.R. Martin very labors the links between the similarities between Jon and Tyrion in 2 or 3 times very strongly. Now, that doesn't mean that it's true, but I think it does mean that he wants us to see that the two of them have got some kind of similarity. It might be the dwarf bastard thing that Tyrion says it is, or it might be something more. So yeah, I'm intrigued by this, and it's as I say, it's something that I've been playing around in my mind for some time. Helen, I'm not going to ask you whether you think Tyrion's a Targaryen. Do you think they're having a happy time in the chat? Have you had any more Numenorian questions that have been appearing there?
Good. No, I think I answered all the questions in the chat. People, if you have more questions,
say it here.
sorry, I'm very efficient and very German. How very German of me. Yeah, no, I didn't spot Numenorian questions in here. I'm happy to. You guys talk A Song of Ice and Fire. I'm happy to answer the chat here. I think most people are literally here for A Song of Ice and Fire. So I'm clueless.
It's all in the name. You are clueless. Anonymous, thank you so much for 2 anonymous donations. Thank you. We're now over 2,900. We will get there, guys. We definitely will. We'll get there. Okay, let's do another as we're on A Song of Ice and Fire, and as Helen has given us permission. Let's do another one. This is another dragony one, so let's get to Amanda for this one. This is from Sylvia Galasso saying, regarding Dragonbinder, which is that big magical horn that Euron's got that he gave to Victarion, if it is true that fire cannot kill a dragon, would a true dragon lord be able to blow the horn without dying, proving to be worthy of riding it? Or was the immunity to fire just a show thing? So wouldn't it be cool if Dany were able to blow the horn herself? What do you think? Is the idea with Dragonbinder that whoever blows it will die, or is it just? Do you think that, say, Dany would herself be able to use it?
Well, first of all, it says no more. It's like no living man or no mortal man, and I do think that Dany will be able to blow it, not because of her not necessarily has dragon blood, but because she's not a man. So I think there's going to be kind of a nod to the Lord of the Rings, Dragonbinder, of that prophecy that like man will be able to kill me, and at the end of the I don't even remember the lady's name. What is the character's name? She rips off her helmet and she's like, I am no man, and she slaps, and then she kills him. There you go. Yeah, I think that's actually going to be a nod to the Lord of the Rings. George R.R. Martin is a huge Tolkien fan, and there's tons of nods. Tolkien, Song of Ice and Fire, and so anyway, I think that that's a good possibility. The other ability is any actually is a good, well-written theory that Victarion may actually be able to blow, because there's a theory that Victarion may have died during his healing of his hand, and that he was possibly resurrected in a sense. And so if you take a look at the chapter, there is kind of a shift after the there's a shift in the point of view of that Victarion chapter, where he undergoes the healing ceremony for his hand with Makoro. And it's interesting because he opens up the door, his arm is smoking, the character point of view actually changes. So it's no longer in his own point of view, but it's actually the view of people around him. And that's a huge shift in the way that George R.R. Martin writes his point of view characters, because he's very consistent in that. And so he's definitely trying to show that there was some sort of change. And Makoro actually told Victarion that his hand was going to kill him. So anyway, if you take a look at the theories, there is a well-written theory out there that Victarion may be resurrected in a sense with his firearm. So even though Victarion is going to be the last person to want to blow it, and he's trying to get everybody else but him to blow it, he may be the only one that's able to use it.
Interesting. So, what do you think, Aziz? Do you think Victarion will blow the Dragon Binder?
No, I actually come down kind of on the opposite side of that. I don't think that he will. I think the horn's already been claimed by Euron. I think Victarion has been conned pretty much the whole way. I don't think there's any way Victarion will outwit his brother. So when the horn is blown, it's probably already been bound to Euron. So I think that regardless of who blows it, it's going to be Euron's dragon, if anyone's. And but I don't think that I don't think the horn will kill Victarion either. It doesn't say the horn will that the hand will kill him. It says that your death is here in this room. So that could mean Makoro, or that could mean the Dusky Woman, or that could mean there's a lot of ways to interpret that. But I think that it's very notable that the Targaryens moved to Westeros without any dragon horns, implying they didn't need them. So the horns are something else, a way for non-Dragon Rider families to steal dragons, or Dragon Rider families to steal from one another. But I still think you ultimately need the blood to establish, like a dynasty. So the horn is some sort of extra tool that I don't know that the Dragon Rider families themselves used, because why didn't the Targaryens have one? Why don't they have one? They brought all their stuff with them, and they brought dragons. So if they didn't bring horns, then they didn't have one. They didn't need it. Like, you know what I mean? Or they thought it could be used against them. So anyway, so I think it's interesting. I think the point of the horn is to put it in the hands of someone else. So and Euron seems like the likely one. He seems like the parallel to Night King from the show, being someone that rides a dragon and has a lot to do with messing up humanity, destroying knowledge. Instead of, in the show, Night King talks about destroying Bran, because that destroys human knowledge. I think the equivalent in the books is destroying Old Town. So because that's the repository of human knowledge. It's our Library of Alexandria example, real tragic. So that's getting a little far off of the main topic here, but yeah, that's kind of what I think. I think Dragon Binder. I think Victarion is screwed one way or the other. But Euron is as well. Euron's not going to ultimately succeed, but I think the horn will get him a dragon.
Yeah, I think I would probably agree with all of that. I think George R. R. Martin described him as thick as a stump, I think was the exact phrase he used for what Victarion was like, which seems to imply that he clearly hasn't got the foggiest idea what's going on. And the other thing that I would just add into that, so Makoro, who may or may not know exactly what's going on with Dragon Binder, but he has been sent there in order to help Daenerys, and there is absolutely no way on this planet that he is going to, if he can get away, possibly do it, allow Victarion to steal one of Daenerys's dragons. That's not what he's doing. He is trying to prevent that right now. But yes, I think I would agree that it's Euron is the only person who might benefit.
Can I throw out a theory for you guys to consider as well related to this?
Go for it.
Victarion's arm. We're talking about Victarion's arm. I think maybe it's the analog, kind of an analog version of what Melisandre did with Mance, giving him a ruby and having some sort of control over him. Because we're talking about, that's what you're saying here. I 100% agree with. There's no way Makoro will allow Victarion to harm Daenerys, and because that's his, literally to him, she's the savior of the world. So it's like his prime directive. So and establishing control over him somehow would be a way to make sure of that. So what Melisandre did with Mance, we wonder if that's ever going to happen again. Is she ever going to use a pair of rubies? And well, maybe this is a similar version of that, since, you know, Makoro doesn't have any rubies on him since he was found floating in the ocean. So he had to do it this way instead. You know, slash her hand open and cast some spells. Like Amanda said, the change in POV structure is very notable there. So something, you know, if he was experiencing whatever is going on, it would give away some of the supernatural mystique, or at least tell us what's happening. So yeah, it was kind of a necessary, like, curveball.
Absolutely.
So what do you guys think about that idea, about the idea of it being a method of control?
Amanda, do you have a thought on that one?
You know, I like that idea, actually. And Makoro is obviously on Team Dany. So I also wonder if he may have even fudged up what the Dragon Binder may actually say.
Nice. So, yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
You know, because
I was going to tell him otherwise.
You know, do you want to give Victarion information about, you know, how to use this? Do you want to do that? Or do you want to give him some, like, you know, some BS? And of course, Victarion is probably going to believe what he says. So, so I do think that he would have a good motive for possibly leading Victarion astray in order to help Dany, because that was actually what he was sent to do. And that is the last thing that Makoro would want, would be somebody taking one of her dragons. So in that sense, I think that you're absolutely really onto something. Another thing that you mentioned is Victarion had claimed the dragon horn with blood, and I wanted what you meant by that.
Well, with that's what Makoro says. You have to claim it with blood, and from the sample, the little sample from Winds of Winter, it seems like he's like trying to manufacture that, but it's really kind of awkward and pathetic because he has no idea what he's doing. and it seems it doesn't seem like it's going to work.
Yeah, I don't think that Victarion has the right idea, because in the other chapter, he's actually just like smearing his blood on it. He's like, "Oh, I'm going to claim it with blood. Here's my blood. I'm going to smear it on there." You know, but I think that, and the Iron actually have a way of claiming things with blood, the Iron Price, and I wonder if you have a previous owner in order to claim it, because that would definitely make sense. It's already killed one of the warlocks, so it's possible that he hasn't fully claimed it yet, and that he will after he sacrifices the last of the warlocks.
Interesting.
Because in the Ice and Fire app, it said that the warlocks it was the warlocks' horn. So part of that ritual that he's doing may actually finalize his claiming of that horn in that sense. And so if Victarion wanted to necessarily claim the horn from Euron, he would then have to kill his brother.
And to wrap all of this up, what Euron is doing is he is creating a huge sea battle. He is strapping the warlocks and others to the front of his boats in order to create a huge sacrifice. And he is timing it, it would appear, to happen at the same time as Victarion arrives over in at Marine to blow the horn and claim the dragons. So he is killing off the warlock as well as King's Blood, his own unborn child, incidentally, in one huge sacrifice at the exact moment that the horn is going to be blown. So that, if you're wanting some sort of tie-in with that, then I think that works well. Guys, we've got 5 minutes to go, and I am very excited because we have reached 3,000. Thank you so much.
Yeah, attaboy, everybody.
This is
good job.
Excellent. This doesn't mean you can stop giving. You can carry on giving. But I'm really excited by this. Thank you so much. This is going to do so much amazing work. I have got 2 more things questions I want to answer. One of them was one just from me, from one of my patrons, who says, Ollie in or out? Ollie in. And then one question for, I think I'll just throw this to everybody, and you can do it for whichever bit of fandom you wish to do it for. This was B, who says, Merry Christmas, Robert. Thank you for the great content on both channels. Your reading of A Christmas Carol, my second channel, if you don't know, The Well Told Tale, that's where I read science fiction and fantasy stories, audiobooks, also available as a download now as well, if you're interested. Christmas Carol is especially dear at this time of year. Is there a character from A Song of Ice and Fire who you think needs to be haunted Scrooge style? Perhaps we can have this as the rounding it off. And I'll start off with you. Pick which fandom you wish to do it. Maybe a Star Wars or Lord of the Rings. Who should be haunted? Helen, at Scrooge style, do you think?
Fëanor from from the Lord of the Rings.
Because he's an elf and deserves it. That's true.
He's a baddie.
Okay, for those who do not know, Fëanor is a character from the Silmarillion who indeed created the Silmarils and then had them stolen from him, and he was wronged and went and tried to reclaim them, and is therefore a goodie. I've
Wrong. That's where you're wrong.
That was an incorrect reading by me. I do apologize, everybody, but there was a hint of truth to it. Amanda, how about you? Which Song of Ice and character do you think should be haunted Scrooge-like?
Well, when I think of Scrooge, I think of characters that are greedy. And so Tywin comes to mind. He's also a character I wouldn't mind seeing go through, even more bad things. So go with Tywin because he is and he could use a good haunting.
What?
So,
I love Tywin.
Tywin Lannister.
Shame, Amanda. Shame.
Tywin.
Hacks, how about you? Pick your fandom.
Yeah.
Who do you think needs a particular haunting?
So I think probably Serac from Westworld. He's down and beaten right now, but he is still very much alive. I'm pretty sure, and ultimately, like, you have to be a very specific type of narcissist to believe that you can plot the course of all humanity just by yourself. And I think that a haunting would probably serve him well.
Wait, isn't the twist of Robert that he's actually a good guy? Isn't that the plot twist?
Obviously, yeah, he is. He will turn into a good guy.
Yeah.
Like Tywin is
if he's
Father of the
haunted
Year as well.
Yeah, if he's haunted, then he'll turn into a good guy. Yeah.
That's the whole point of Scrooge.
Yeah.
Who would you pick to be haunted Scrooge-like?
Well, can I also say Tywin so he can have it in stereo? No, I'm just kidding. He needs dual go. No, there's this guy, I can't think of his name. I should have looked him up. There was this lord, I think he was a swan, that there's a tale in Fire and Blood where his niece was captured by pirates, and he just didn't pay the ransom, so she ended up in a brothel. Like, dude, pay the ransom. come on, he definitely deserves haunting. That's his own family. He's like he said it's too cheap to pay the ransom. So like, come on, dude.
Oh my God, said Walder Frey. Yes, I'm
All the prey. I mean,
Good one.
I'm tempted to go Jar Jar Binks simply because, but I think if I'm going A Song of Ice and Fire, Stannis, the image of Stannis being faced by a ghost is do your duty at it. I mean, he would just be so unfazed by it all. It would be amazing. Okay, with that, I'm going to wrap all of this up. Thank you to my amazing guests. First of all, do you want to just quickly remind everyone where they can find you on the internet? I will put links to everything down. I think I forgot to do that beforehand, but I will put links down in the description for if you're not watching live. But Aziz, who are you and where can people find you?
I am Aziz. I am from History of Westeros and the podcast of Surprise. You can find me under those names all over the interwebs. Thanks for having me. This was great. I'm glad we made your goal just in time. That was very cool. We broke your mark from last time, so it's a great success.
Excellent. I'm very pleased. And Helen, who are you and where can people find you?
Hello, beautiful people. My name is Helen, and my channel's name finally, literally last time I was here, my channel existed, but it didn't have content. A year later, boom, there is content. And yes, I'm the clueless fangirl. I was the crazy person here in the chat answering all the questions. I'm the chatbot, and I do have a I wanted to say a Star Wars channel. I wish. I do have a Lord of the Rings channel, and I do talk well, maybe mainly First and Second Age and the ages before the books and the movies, so all the deep nerdy stuff. And
she specializes in dwarven content all the time.
That is a wrong information, people. I do hate dwarves, although they are my height.
If you've ever met Helen, then you can be sure of this.
Or hobbits. No, yes,
and confirm.
And yeah, maybe I'll get Robert soon. And Hax promised me as well to read the Silmarillion and come on my channel, and maybe I get Robert on there. I just had if people know Lord of the Rings YouTubers, I had Joysten from Men of the West on my channel, and I do fun lore videos and live streams like this where I talk for 1 or 2 hours over my guests. If you want to see that, drop by, and yeah, I that's and I talk on Kal's channel because people have been asking about the Star Wars stuff. So I might be a regular on Burlington Bar's channel now, and I talk on Kal's channel about the Mandalorian and Star Wars in general, and that is Fandom Media. I didn't have the link here. If somebody can drop the link from the moderators, that would be awesome. That's it. Sorry.
If you listen to Fandom Media, you're a Fandalorian.
Yeah, I'm Boba Katan there. And yeah, Aziz has his Witcher podcast with Kyle, a friend of this channel as well, right, Aziz?
Excellent. Hacks. So that's a lot of talking that Helen does, is the base of the short Hacks. Where are you on the internet?
Yeah. First, I just want to say thank you guys all so much for being. For letting me come. It's been my pleasure, and working with all of you is amazing. You can find me at Hacks Dogma on YouTube. You can also find my writing on Amazon, a book called Cyclic under the pen name CS Woolwine. It would mean so much if you would support that on however you would like to. And I'm also writing a novel now. It's going to be fantasy, and it's currently in development, and I'm so excited about it. But again, I appreciate the opportunity to come and talk with all of you.
Excellent. And Amanda, how about you?
Yeah, so my name is Amanda, and I go by Crowfood Star. I do have a YouTube channel. It's called The Disputed Lands, where I talk about a lot of Song of Ice and Fire stuff, dealing with like history and dragons and maybe the Ironborn. And you can also find me on Twitter at crowfood_SD. So, and thanks for having me.
An absolute pleasure. Thank you, all of you, for coming on. It's been emotional. Thank you. I've been really enjoying the chat. The chat and everyone who's been here, everyone who's been contributing. Thank you so much. The generosity of this community is mind blowing at times. Thank you so much. That's it's wonderful. The money that you've contributed, and if you're watching this later, the donate button is still there. It'll be well, I'll point it all the directions. It's somewhere on the screen in front of you, so you can still donate if you're watching this not live later as well. But thank you so much. Thank you for the excellent questions. Personally, I'm now taking the next 2 weeks off, but then I will be back the first Thursday of the new year with another live stream. Okay, so big happy Christmas from me. If you celebrate it, thank you to my guests. Take care, everyone, and I will see you again soon. Bye.
Bye.